Greetings, team. How are you all going? I have a co-host, Kermit. Mango's doing. Oh, never mind. That's not animal abuse, right? Just ignore that. How are you all doing? Let's run through this quickly and let's get into this podcast. I do have a new camera, which you probably see in the chat. So, thank you. You were kind enough to send me. They said to do a review on, but as most of you know, I've had a pretty bad year this year, so I haven't had chance to do it yet. Should we put this? Hang on, let me see if I can. You get to see Kermit now. This is. But anyway, let's go through this quickly. Hi, Robert. How are we doing? Hello, Tree. Bam. How are we doing? Yeah, my mic doesn't work, so I am coming through the microphone of my laptop, and then yeah, so hopefully you can hear me okay. I think we're all right. Technical issues, yeah, I look okay. It's a bit better. I've hopefully sorted the internet out. Hopefully things are okay. How are we doing, Dendro? Hope we're well. Gary, what is up, my friend? The chat's all here. It's been a while since I've done this. Hello, friends. Sadly, Riddler does not belong. I thought you were doing a True Tales anyway. Roughneck Greek house. I'm confused. Serenity Dragons, how are we doing? Kathy, how are we doing? I don't know if you all saw, but Kathy got a very exciting pickup last weekend. Was it last weekend? I can't remember. What's going on? Hello, Matt. How are we doing? Everyone's just abusing Riddler. I'm here for it. Okay, I think that's everybody. So let's just get the housekeeping out of the way, and then we can get into this podcast. So, Responsible Reptile Keeping. I'm not affiliated. They don't pay me. They did send me a lovely photo, though. A wonderful poster. Solly says, support Responsible Reptile Keeping. I need to put that there now. So if you are interested in supporting the reptile hobby a little bit more than just maybe keeping reptiles, to see the kind of stuff that's going on inside of the internal affairs of the hobby, the propaganda that's being pressed against us. Responsible Reptile Keeping do it in a manner of ways. They do it for podcasts, they do short form, they do long form, the YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, on all social media platforms. For as little as £4 a month, you can support them, but even a like, comment, share, subscribe, any of that across their social platforms will benefit and help them. It shows the authoritative figures that there are numbers and there is volume. So if you want to check out Responsible Reptile Keeping, the link is in the description. And then obviously your boy has hay fever. HabiStat, you know, face of HabiStat now. You probably see me doing stupid stuff. If you need anything for your reptiles, then check out HabiStat. I'd really appreciate it. If you've got any HabiStat products, please do share and tag us on social media. It helps me and do my job a little bit better. And if you're not following HabiStat, please, again, same for Responsible Reptile Keeping. Give it a like, give it a share, give it a follow on socials. It's greatly appreciated. Plus, we do some pretty good stuff over there as well. And then, last but not least, you beautiful people. So, shout out to the Patreon, the people that support me that little bit more than a like, comment, share, and subscribe. You get entrance to a private Discord where we just talk absolute nonsense, and I sometimes post things that haven't yet been seen by the internet. I'm not going to pretend it's something fancy like these other YouTubers. You know, there's no paywall like, oh, pay for this and you can get this. I'm not interested in that. The tiers are exactly the same rewards. There's no hidden, you know, you can pay £2, pay £50, pay whatever you want. You get the same as everybody else. It's purely just to support me and my Lucasade addiction. I did give it up for a little bit, but I'm back on it now. So sad times. What's going on? Unfortunately, certainly they've had to be separated. Oh, okay. He's on about his ridiculous. Right. Anyway, okay. Dan's here. Well, without further ado, everyone, I'm going to introduce this week's guest. He's my adopted father. You know him as Mr. Scandinavian Goannas. Here he is, the man himself.
Hey.
How we doing, mate?
We're doing okay. It's getting late, but we're doing okay.
Is it an hour? You're an hour back from us, aren't you? So it's 9 o'clock, 10 past 9 for you.
Yeah, it's 9:07.
Yeah, so you're an hour back from the UK. It's 8:07 here. For some reason, my nose has decided to become a tap. So thankfully, I have tissue here. So I might have to blow it at some point. But how are you doing? How's all your menagerie? How's your reptile keeping going, my friend? Everything going?
Yeah, right now it's like quieting down. Breeding season is over. We can start to relax a little. I don't plan on
Now
getting more eggs.
Well, okay. I was just going to say, because before, we'll a little bit later, but for the theme of today's topic, everybody, we're going to touch a little bit Indonesian versus Australian monitors. And I know, obviously, recently got some Jobiensis, so congratulations on that. And you've been posting them; they're looking amazing. But obviously, being an Indonesian monitor, they don't cool down for the winter. They still run on 80% cylinders. So are you looking forward to having something to play with through the winter, or are you like,
No, it's actually gonna be nice, I think, because as you know, all the dwarfs, they'll be like more or less inactive, so that's like 80% of my cages. Then I have the flabbies. The flabbies, they don't care. You're gonna keep them down to like 12, 14 degrees at night. They don't give a shit. They'll still be hungry in the morning.
Yes, for sure. Right. Where is this? It's been a while, everyone. Bear with me. We have some new, and Fia's just mentioned she can see my feet in the background in the reflection. So you can see I'm not wearing Crocs, but Crocs or no Crocs?
You know the answer. No Crocs here.
I know. Don't know how we're still friends, but okay. Reptiles or less reptiles?
Less reptiles. But you already know it.
I know it, yeah. Wild caught good, bad.
Well, I have to go with wild caught good. I just got the Jobiensis from Indonesia, so I can't quite say they're bad, but again, nobody in Europe really breeds the Jobies, so it's like, what options do we have? I can't get any captive bred Jobies here.
Yeah, it's a hard dichotomy that you have to get wild to get captive bred, but if no one's going to captive breed the wild caught, then it just is this endless cycle. So
yeah.
Strong or physically strong?
That has to be a combination, It has to be. I can't function without both of them.
I'm neither right now. This year I've let myself go mentally and physically, especially starting an office job as well. So I sit in a chair for like 10 hours a day now. And I'm the heaviest. So for me, neither. What reptile have you had the longest and how long have you had it?
What is it? It's probably my small male Fiji iguana. What is he now? It's probably 13, 14 years old. It's the one I have kept the longest, but the oldest I have is here behind me. It's the Tristis. And the female, she turned 20 this year.
She's still looking really sprightly as well. The picture you posted recently of her, she looks really good.
Yeah, she's good. She's active and just acting like normal, just no eggs.
I wonder if they get like a point where there is just no more eggs to give, similar to like obviously humans. It gets to a point where there's just no more eggs and then they just won't cycle anymore. I wonder if they cycle until they eventually pass away. I don't know, to be honest.
We'll see. Maybe next year.
When was the last time she laid for you?
That must be 5 years ago.
Okay. So she's not laid for a while. But then your female story was pretty old as well, wasn't she? And she's recently given you a clutch.
Yeah, they're also roughly around 10, 11 years old now.
Oh, okay. So still a few years to catch the Tristus.
Yeah.
We've just touched on it, but who's your most recent addition?
And that's the Jobies. Well, recent.
How are you finding them?
They're nice. They're very calm. They're not like shy. There's one is very bold. The biggest one is very bold. And the smallest one is a little more tricky, but it's also very tiny compared to the others. So far, it's been the most shy one, and he won't eat basically only insects.
So have you got them all split out now? Are they all individual?
Yeah, for now they're all in each, yeah, so I can better keep an eye on all of them.
And have you found that's made a difference, or has it not been long enough to see yet?
The other big one has become a little more shy now that it's living alone and it doesn't have to like get out quick to get the food. The food is just there. There's nobody eating it. So it kind of like waits until I'm not there before it goes eating.
I heard that with Timorensis. When I kept them separately, they were very, I mean, they were shy when I kept them together, but they were very shy. Then I eventually put them together. I had 3. I put them together. And overnight they seemed to just get more bold. It was such a weird thing. It's almost like they felt comfortable in numbers. And I don't think there's any evidence to support that monitors live together as sort of youngsters in the wild, but they do seem to do better when you keep them in groups. For the most part, obviously there are some that will eat each other, but for the most part, they seem to do better. I don't know if you found the same.
With some species, yeah, they like the Ackies and stuff. They do great in little groups. Whereas Storai, I have had problems keeping in groups.
Okay. As youngsters or as adults?
The Storai has normally been okay for a month or 2, and then suddenly I have had like rather big cages where I had like 5 babies, and then you come there one day, you have 1 male, 1 female left. They killed the rest.
Well, that happened to my Timors, to be honest. I had 3 and then 1 disappeared and it didn't get out. And I had another Timor that was quite chubby. So it's safe to say that it didn't make it, but who knows? I don't know. I didn't see anything. I didn't know it was. And I know a friend of mine's is either him or a friend of his. He's had Pilbara like the same size as each other, just eat each other, which is wild.
I have seen it with Gillanai once.
Jesus.
That they actually, yeah,
That's
I've
not
seen
good.
Gillanai babies eat each other one time. The Storai, they simply just killed them. They didn't eat them. They just killed them.
Scary, isn't it? Because the amount of babies that they have sometimes, not so much with stores or even Gillanai or Kingorum because they're small clutches, but when you're talking Ackies, Tristus, Timors that are having sort of 10 plus eggs, it's hard to house those babies all individually. So it is scary to think that, I guess it's part of the breeding, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we learn as we go. You know, some species do well, some don't. The Flavies, for example, do great when they're babies together. You know, they reach a certain age, they become teenagers, then you have to like start keeping an eye on them. Even females, sometimes you can't keep them together.
Just they become too dominant.
Yeah, one will attack the others.
And then do you see that right through into? I mean, we're going to go into Flavies now because it's kind of onto the subject of it. But do you see that into adulthood? Because you keep yours in a group, if I'm not wrong, or do you keep them separately?
Adults I mostly keep as pairs. I had one pair now. I had to split them up because she's like crazy. She laid eggs and then she can't be with the male again after laying eggs. It'll have to be like at least a month or two before she can go back.
So when she's in the Genesis and she's laying eggs, do you pull the rest from her enclosure? Do you pull her into a laying enclosure?
Now I remove the male because before she starts digging, she will start like really bullying him to the point where he won't come out. He will just be hiding. Then I will normally remove him for a while. Then she can lay, and then she will just stay there for a month or two. Then he can go back.
And how many clutches do you get roughly out of your female a year, roughly?
Well, I can actually control them pretty well. So this year I didn't breed that much. I didn't want many eggs, but I have had up to 3 or 4 clutches in 1 year from one female.
So that just as a prolific then, because an Ackie will give you sort of 4 to 5 clutches a year. So
yeah.
And what kind of are you seeing on average with the Flavies?
I've had from 4 to 9.
And are they? I mean, it's easy for me because I've had them. Are they similar size eggs to Indicus eggs, or are they quite like a panada? Or
compared to the Indicus I had, the Flavy eggs are smaller.
Okay, I think I have one. I don't know where it is. I want to say it's here. It is here. Wow, that is perfect timing, everybody. So this is an Indicus egg as an Indicus hatches, and I have average size man hands. I don't know if Catty, you're still here. I was supposed to give this to you. I'm going to send it to you. This is Squid's egg. Would you say they're bigger or smaller than this? Just so people can sort of see. It's probably 2.5, 3 inches.
Maybe really similar, a little shorter, but more bulky.
Yeah. You had the Saint Isabel, wasn't it? The bigger Indicus than what I have.
Yeah.
So, Flavy, how? I don't think we touched on Flavies a little bit, and I know it was quite popular. So let's kind of just start at the start with Flavies. How long have you been keeping? Have you got? Because there's 2 species, isn't there? There's Varanus, is it Flavorufus, and then Flavorufus something else, isn't it?
It's gold eye.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're separate species anymore. There's like talks constantly. Then they're the same species. Then they're subspecies. I don't know anymore.
You know what species you have, or is it again? It's possible that somewhere because of culture they've been mixed, or you're pretty sure yours are what they are.
Of course, there's a chance they have been mixed somewhere along the line. My females, they come from an old US import. The import was, now it's probably around 20, 22 years ago. And my males are from a 15 years old Canadian import.
Okay, so pretty much all of your stock, the blood heritage, has come from the US.
The females,
yeah. Yourself.
My females are US, males are Canadian.
Okay. And how long ago did you get in? Did you have Flavies before this time that you've had Flavies, or is this your first stint of keeping Flavies?
I had one Flavie that is 15 years ago, probably, from a pet store near the German border. They didn't know what it was. They had no idea what it was. Somebody dropped it off to them. They had no idea.
This is a big Ackie. Let's just stick it in a cage.
Yeah. But back then, I couldn't find a mate for it. It was a female, but there was no mates. It was an older animal. And then second time with Flavies, that was now be 6 years, I think, since I got them.
Okay.
I think.
So did you start when you got those? When you got those original ones from US and Canada, were they youngsters or were they sexed adults?
No, mine are not the original ones. Mine are just descendants from those imports.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, I see.
So I got the females I got on September 15, 2019.
Okay,
so
yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the
and
males.
Are you the main? Sorry, carry on.
The males I got about 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
And are you mainly the only person keeping and breeding them in Europe, or I'm not up to date with who keeps what in Europe, to be honest. A couple of other people you can trade bloodlines with.
There are a few breeders in Europe. The main guy was the one I got my females from. And a lot of the ones I have seen available is from his line. You can clearly see a difference in the pattern.
Mm.
So there are quite a few breeders now.
I'm just going to bring up the thumbnail that I created just quickly. I'm going to bring it on the screen because we have a Flavie right there. So is that a male or a female? Can you tell from the picture? Because obviously it's one of your.
That one's a male.
And do they all have the evil, menacing blood red eye?
The 2 adult males do, yeah. But the females don't.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm waiting on my holdbacks to see.
So do we not know if it's a genetic trait or if it's just a, like, for example, some Beckerai have different color eyes, like black tree monitors. Some have red, some have black, which I find quite interesting. And I don't know, I have no idea why it is. It seems to be red eyes produce red eyes, so similar to my parents have blue eyes, so I have blue eyes. I assume, but I don't know.
I honestly don't know. We'll have to see with my holdbacks what they turn out to be when they reach adulthood in a couple of years.
You could sex them just straight off the bat. Males have red eyes, females don't. That would be pretty cool. Nice and easy, because piranhas typically hard to sex.
Yeah. That would have been super easy. You can do it with Storai. Storai you can sex when they're like 1-2 months old.
Oh, really?
That's super easy.
They have lumps straight away, or is it the tail-based thing?
No, it's the face. The head of the males, even when they're a couple of months old, compared to the head of a female, the male's head already there is massive.
I've seen Kingurum male, a young, get a really fat neck pretty quickly, like 2 or 3 months old as well. I've seen that. So I guess it'd be a similar thing. So you got your originals in 2019, or originals. You've got this lot in 2019. When you first saw them, what was your first impressions? Did you do like research to be knowing roughly what to expect, or were you just like monitors. I've kept lots of lizards. These look cool. I want to get into them. So what was the process of getting ready for them, and then how were they in comparison to what you thought they would be like outside you had sort of in the past?
I got my friend offered them to me. He knew the breeder, so we knew it like in, I think it was a couple of months in advance. So I had time to do a little research here and there, like roughly the size of them, and them being related to Panoptes, you kind of know what you're getting into. I have kept Panoptes, bred Panoptes like 15 years ago. So it's kind of like a small Panoptes. Behavior-wise, feeding response is like totally like a Panoptes.
For people that are wondering, Panoptes is the August monitor, which is arguably one of the most active lizards on the planet, but can get sort of 5-6 foot, because you've got Panoptes, and Panoptes horni, one ranging from Papua from Australia. And now Flavies are, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 foot maximum, 400 centimeters sort of thing.
Yeah, males get to 100, females maybe up to 80.
So not very, half the size of a Panoptes, but has the same look, the same behaviors, the same, I'm assuming, food drive, attitude, ability.
Yeah, they're completely like a small Panoptes. They were also tripod and everything.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know they tripoded.
It's rare, but they can do.
I've just messaged my beautiful fiance to bring the goods, so I wasn't leaving the wonderful internet. So shout out for everyone in the chat. So you got these, and they were everything you're expecting. They were dwarf monitors, and I'm assuming you were pretty in love from the jump.
Yeah. I've always liked Flavies, but they were so hard to find here in Europe, and the prices were like crazy. The price was still crazy when I got my first free, the females. But
you don't have to go into figures, but just whilst we're on pricing, what is your opinion of the reptile market? So, for example, I'm very vocal that I think tree monitors are way too expensive. I think it's ludicrous, the price of tree monitors. All the tree monitor breeders hate me, but I don't really care. And the UK right now has wild caught tree monitors in pet shops that are more expensive than genuine UK captive bred. And I just think to myself, how has the hobby got itself to a situation where wild caught is £1,000 more one shop's got a McRae eye for £4,000 and you can buy a captive one for 1,800 quid. So, the market's kind of crazy. Obviously, being in Europe, you're slightly different to us, but you don't have to, like I say, do like I've just done and bash on tree monitor breeders. But what's your opinion on the reptile market, full stop? Do you think things are fairly priced at the minute? Do you think things are a bit crazy?
Depends on the species. Some species have gone down a lot in price over the last couple of years. Others have gone up. It's like I told you not long ago. I have never seen so many tree monitors available in Europe as we have now.
Yeah, and I found that strange when you said that to me the first time round. I found that quite strange because tree monitors here are really holding their value. So normally people, when they get out of projects, is when they sell. They're like, okay, they're not worth money anymore. We'll get rid of them. Whereas tree monitors seem to always be this, upper echelon price. But I guess it comes with rarity. I assume between yourself and maybe one or two others, you can kind of depict the price of Flavies. There's not, I guess you don't have much competition.
No, but I've seen maybe 2 or 3 others this year that have had the babies available. But it's like, the market in general is slowing down on a lot of species. So it's like people don't want to buy anything like super expensive right now.
2 months away from Christmas as well, dare I say it. But yeah, it's, you know, I had last year I had great success with Gillenai. I produced 36, I think, 36 Gillenai in one season, so a lot of Gillenai, and I managed to sell / swap. So I did a lot of trading actually, but I managed to shift them all. I kept 2 for myself, which I still have here. So 34, 32, whatever it is, Gillenai. This year I only produced, I had 14 eggs, but I lost a lot of the eggs when I moved house, and only like 4 hatched. And then a good friend of mine who's breeding, who's got my belly, and he gave me a baby or 2 from that. And I still have those babies. I just haven't been able to sell them. But last year, people were messaging me like, "Where's the Gillenai? Where's the Gillenai?" So I've seen it here as well. The market changing, and I just managed to sell them yesterday. And it was like, wow, that was a struggle. That's never been the case before. And then I started to think, and I started to worry, because that clearly means there's not many people looking for Gillenai. Okay, fine. But lots of people have just got into Gillenai, and they're next year, maybe the year after, going to be breeding. And then all of a sudden, those people aren't going to be able to sell the babies. So those people are going to sell the adults, and then no one will be breeding Gillenai. And then the price hikes back up. And then people like myself that are just keeping them for the sake of keeping them can capitalize, because the market does this all the time. Do you think there's a way we can stop that, or do you just think, because obviously, and I'm saying this lovingly as my adopted father, been in the hobby longer than I have, has it always been like that, those flows that you've seen, or did it used to be a more simple sort of 15 years ago when you were first Flavies?
I think we had a lot less breeders 15 years ago. So not quite as many available animals as we have now. Now we have a lot of people breeding all kinds of stuff. You see Ackies, everybody breed Ackies, and nobody wants to like slow down on breeding now. People just want to produce and produce and produce.
It's hard for certain species like Ackies, because they always seem to sell. So no matter how cheap they get, they always seem to sell. Whereas people that are doing more expensive, say Tristus, Kimberleys, over here, for example, you can't find Primordius or Storai, like, because people that would have been breeding couldn't sell them, exported them to Europe before Brexit, and now we don't have stock. So it is something that I think people that are keeping animals and getting into animals need to think about before they do it and make their peace. I have no issues if you buy something, it's just a project, and I have no issues if you buy something and it's a pet. But I think, from being in the hobby as long as I have and what I've seen, sometimes I think you need to map out clear lines, because if, for example, you're buying Gillenai to think, oh yeah, I'm going to breed them and make money, the chances are you're too late to the party. I was very lucky that I happened to get Gillenai because I wanted Gillenai. No one was breeding them, and I was the most successful in them. It was this perfect storm. And I don't think you can ever predict that. I think it just happens. So I think people just need to, like, for example, yourself, when you got Flavies, did you get into Flavies because you wanted Flavies, or did you get into Flavies because... Now, I know this is going to be kind of a weird question, because I know you like to breed stuff because you like me. So when I say wanted to breed them, I don't mean just because that's what you're keeping is. I mean, did you see yourself as, I just want to breed these, or you're like, I want to keep these? What was your thought when you first got them?
Well, I liked them, so I definitely got them because I really would like to keep them again. And back then, I only knew of one breeder in Europe, so it was kind of like a challenge at the same time. I like to have a challenge, you know. Just one species I have to like work for it to really like get it breeding. That's also with the Joviensis. I have wanted Joviensis for a long time. And now there will be like the challenge to get them breeding once they get big.
I think you only brought them because I sold Toad and you were living vicariously through me. And when I sold Toad, you were like, that's it. I'm going to get some Jobiensis now. So it's my fault.
Well, Toad was supposed to come to me. You know that.
I know. It's just a logistical nightmare unless one of us like put on like a balaclava and drove it late at night across the water. But yeah, it's a logistical nightmare now. Otherwise, honestly, I'd have loved her to gone to you, but sadly, some people here have voted leave and do that, which makes me sad.
Well, at least I got the free that I have now.
No, you have the three you have, and I'm pretty sure they're the same locality. So kind of happenstance for you, obviously enamored with my little Toad, and now you have three of a similar locality, if not the same locality. So it's kind of beautiful that it worked out that way, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice. You know, I was speaking to a German importer to get something Indonesian again, you know, and then he offered these Jobiensis. So then was like, I have to try again, have something from Indonesia, and it was the start.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into the Indo-Aussie talk, but Robert, thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, it kind of falls into the Indicus complex and Indo-Aussie, and I know there's loads of questions. The chat is going off, and I am missing questions because obviously we're in conversation, and I'm not saying this to just grab money. I don't know what the cheapest super chat is, but if you definitely want your question answered, then just drop a super chat. Because I am in comments because I really appreciate and love you all, but you're asking too much. But Robert, so I've never kept quints. Have you kept Molinas before?
Yeah.
Okay, so perfect. What's your thoughts on Molinas?
Oh, they're super nice. I used to have two males living together. I had this like the super big cage for them. It was a walk-in cage. When they reached about 1 meter, they were tame enough that when you entered the cage, they would jump me.
Okay.
They would literally jump to me to get their food.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they were super nice. I would love to have them again.
They're known as... They're pretty big.
Yeah.
They're known as the friendly Indicus complex. So of all the group that, you know, the mangroves, the peach throats, the blue tail monitors, I think are the common ones. They're probably the common three, to be honest. Quints, then being in the common of the four, they are, for me, they're a little too bulky, whereas they start to look a bit more like an Asian water monitor. And I'm not talking the balloon ones that just get fed loads. I'm talking like an actual sleek, but the body is a bit bulky. But I've seen some really nice yellow quints. I've never kept them. I've only ever interacted with one, and it was quite a chubby male, so it was pretty slow. But they get massive in comparison to most Indicus or most Jobiensis. So I would say if you're going to get them, make sure you've got the space. But I hear that they're pretty friendly, and obviously you're saying you socialize your stuff. You're just there, you turn up, you interact, you feed, you do what you need to do, and they just get used to you rather than actually going out of your way to like be tame, and your animals still end up social. So I think if someone actually had a pet quince and dedicated an hour every day to like tongue feeding and enriching it, it would probably be a pretty social animal.
Most likely, you know, I never handled them. It's the same with my Indicus. When I had them, you know, I didn't handle them. And my male, he got super chill. It was also a walk-in cage they had in the end. And you could just walk in, you could sit next to him, next to the water. He would just sit there. You can give him a back scratch if you wanted and stuff. He was also super chill.
I remember you telling me that when we were speaking on Indicus, and I was just looking at Mango that was, jumping but from the back of her enclosure and headbutting the glass and trying to kill me. So I was just like, how is ever going to happen? But now having a captive bred one, I can see that it's going to be a different story, even though yours was a wild one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your original male was wild.
But my pair was both wild.
What do you think? The key to calming that lizard down was? Do you think it was his demeanor? Do you think it's the size of the enclosure? Do you think it's the way that you keep, or is it a collective of all of them? Do you think there was a route to success for that?
Probably not keeping them in like too big of a cage to start with, For a long time they had smaller cage. They were always out. They were never hiding when they turned like, I don't know, 60, 70 centimeters. Then they started to be out all the time, and you could like feed them with tongs and everything. They just started to be like less and less shy. I don't know if it would be the same if they would have been in a massive cage, or they would have remained shy.
That's awesome. I was thinking about them as they're standing out to me because of the look of the Asian water monitor and why I like them, but are not super long and more manageable and friendly. So I would argue Salvatore or Asian water monitors are more friendly than a Quince. But yes, I would say Quince are probably a lot easier to deal with overall than an Asian water monitor. Would you agree?
Yeah, mainly because of size. It's like I would never keep Asian water monitors because of the size of the cage it would need for me to be happy.
Yeah. Dare I even ask how big you would want?
Yeah, but you can see the Tristis cage behind me. It's 2.7 meters just for a pair of Tristis.
Mm.
And I enjoy them there.
Yeah,
much more.
You do. You do it right, mate. The way you keep is very impressive.
But it's like they're active, Tristis, they're super active. The Goannas I got from Jonas, they're like all over the cage, even though they have a big cage now, That their cage is roughly 120 long, and then 110 to 120 deep and 185 tall.
And just to put that in perspective, everybody. I'm sorry, carry on, mates. Carry on.
These Goannas ain't even adult yet. And they're like super active.
Put that in perspective.
They're all
It's the same size as this enclosure.
And they're already like
it's crazy. It's crazy. Like people look at me and think, "Oh, I keep big," which I do for the average keeper. But I'm happy to put myself on blast here. Your Goannas enclosure is pretty much the same size as my Prasinus enclosure. Like it's mental. Like what you give your animals. So like people look at my enclosure for my Prasinus and saying they're really active. Kermit's, he uses every inch. It's 120 by 120 by 108. So 4 by 4 by 6 for people that can't convert centimeters. And he uses it, and you've put a 10-inch Varanid in the same size that I've put a 2.5-foot Varanid. So yeah, I'm, it's one, it's good for you because you always make me do better. 2, it's bad being friends with you because you always make me do better.
Well, that leads us back to the less, like Tom Crutchfield said, less is more. And it's true. I have lesser animals now, but much bigger cages, and I enjoy them so much more.
Yeah, it's something I've slowly started to implement. I'm not going to say your stage of cages, but I've also said how I've kind of gone along the process. I started off in a small enclosure, and she went into a slightly bigger enclosure. I know I've never hid the fact. I don't want to be that keeper or social media person that's like, oh yeah, it's just a big enclosure. That's what we should all do. I've always sort of shown, like for example, just now being like, yeah, this is a big enclosure for a tree monitor compared to what some people give, but you're putting gillenite in that size enclosure. So it's like, it depends what kind of room you're in with what kind of people. And it's important to remember for everybody to always have a goal and work. I had a lady message me once, and I won't mention the species or stuff, but she messaged me after, and she said she felt terrible for this animal that she had in question, because she had it in double the size of the recommended minimum, and this person I was talking to was like 10 times the size of what was recommended, and she felt so terrible. And I said to her, I was like, you're doing better than most. Not that should matter, and you're where you are right now. You can't upgrade, but if you move house, you can now put that in your back pocket and go, oh, I would really like to give this a bigger enclosure. So it's always something we can work towards, and it doesn't have to be something that negatively detriments to hobby. But I think when you get into the collector mentality and you go, what's the minimum I can put this in, and can I fit this in here? That's when it starts to become a bit of an issue for me, anyway.
It does, and I have been there, and I have been very open about it. Back then, that I ended up with too much. And of course you get attacked by people, and they're like criticizing you. And out of all the people in this hobby, the one that reached out and actually says something positive again was Tom Crutchfield. No negative comment from him at all. It's like then you start to think, okay, the way he's saying it, there was something right about it. So I started downsizing and upgrading cages.
When you started that downsize process, how did you go about doing it? So if someone's sitting and listening to this podcast and they feel like they need to downsize for one reason or another, whether it's life has changed or whether that's they can't care for the animals as well as they probably should, or whatever the case may be, there's a million and one reasons. What would, as someone who's lived it, breathed it, done it, and come out the other side, what would be kind of like the first step or couple of steps you would take to decide what animals are probably the best ones on, and how you would go about psyching yourself up to do that? Because obviously it's not an easy decision to do, and the hardest decisions in life are always normally the best ones to make, but they are the hardest. What kind of steps could someone take to get themselves into a position where they could start finding their way to better keeping?
Well, for me, I started looking at what I had. I had like two big groups of Goannas. I had a lot of like red Ackies. I had a lot of Fiji iguanas. So it was like, okay, we have a lot. I will only I kept 3 Goannas back only, and I think I sold off 10. The Fijis, I had 7 pairs. I sold off 6 pairs. Then I had my 2 old males left and 1 female. That already generated like a lot of extra space. And then the Indicos as well.
Yeah, that was a hard one.
That was a hard one. But it had to be done. I really wanted to. I cut down super much. I think I only had left 1 pair of red Ackies, 3 Goannas, 1 pair of Storai, and 5 Flavis, and then 1 pair of Tristis. I think that was all I had left. And then the Fijis, the 3 Fiji iguanas. That was all that was left. And then I simply took all the empty cages, removed them all, burned them all, so you can't get tempted again. I literally
Yeah.
burned the cages in the back garden, and then sat
How was
down
that?
like,
Was that like, was it euphoric or was it like kind of depressing? How did you feel when you were burning those cages?
it actually felt good because suddenly there was so much extra time for the remaining animals. It was no stress anymore. I shipped a lot of
Yeah,
those
you
off.
start.
Huh?
I was going to say you start to see a lot more behaviors when you have less animals.
Yeah. And then I started upgrading the cages. Now I had all this extra space. Then I started slowly upgrading each of them. First off, the flabbies got upgraded, and then all the others followed. I only have one cage left that's not upgraded yet, but it's in the planning.
Do you think when you get that done, do you think you'll be happy, or do you think there's always something else?
I can always do something else. There will always be something popping up in my head. It might not be
Yeah.
rebuilding cages, but then improving inside the cages. Something you have to try it out sometimes. Even if it's something as simple as a different basking area, different surface for them, something. But I will, well, you know what's coming, so I have to do one more large cage.
Yeah, it's going to be everyone go all. I didn't realize how much social media you had, by the way, until today when I googled you. You're on every platform. You're on more platforms than me, and you have a website. So links in
Yeah,
description, everyone. Go and follow.
but I don't use them. I mainly just use Instagram. Then it automatically posts to the Facebook page.
Yeah. No, still, I didn't realize you had a TikTok. Yeah, well, if it's not you, someone has a Scandinavian TikTok. So
Yeah, it's not really being used. It was a long time ago. I wanted to see what it was and stuff, but I'm not really using it. I just stick mainly to Instagram.
same as me nowadays, to be honest. I mean, as everybody knows, that I haven't posted on YouTube really. But yeah, the links are below. You've got some very exciting stuff coming, so everyone go follow. But yeah, so you burn those cages, you started to build, you started to upgrade, and looking back now in hindsight, is there anything that you did through that process that you regret, or there's like you could pass on to someone that is looking to do the same?
I actually don't think I regret much of it because I felt it was like needed to be done. Maybe I shouldn't have burned off the cages, but you have to do what you have to do. It's like an addict, you have to remove the temptation.
Yeah. I completely agree.
So burning
we had
the
the same
cages.
here, actually. We had empty cages, and Fee was like, "Fill them. You're just gonna fill." And I was like, "No more. I'm not getting any more. There's one more species I'm getting, which she knows about. I've been planning on getting it for a while. There's one more species, and there's nothing else. That's it." And she's like, "Paul, you've got empty cages." And so I got rid of them. They're gone. I had no temptation. I can't. If they're there, they get filled. So I just got rid of them. So yeah, I know what you mean, because something comes up and you go, "Oh, I've got an empty cage there," or "I can do this here." So it's dangerous, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's also why I had to get rid of all those cages. They weren't big cages. Only the Indicus cage was big.
Yeah.
And now I have to do that Indigo's cage once more that size. Well, I have to do 2 because I have to do one for the Jobies
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
one
yeah. The one for the
what's
new, the new exciting. What's she saying? Oh, she hates empty cages. I mean, I have 3. I have 3 empty cages here at the minute. This one here, which everyone can see my feet in, which is purely just being used as a table to prop up these 2 enclosures. And then I have my old tree monitor enclosure, which is really shanty. I just need to get rid of it. And then there's a tiny enclosure. Oh no, there's 2 tiny enclosures, but they're for the baby king gorum and the baby king gorum hatch. Right, okay. Just quickly chat. Is there any you want on Flavies before we go towards Indo-Aussie species? Because we've kind of touched on the Jobiensis there. We spoke a bit about Flavies. So is there any, whilst I'm looking at the chat, is there any final questions? And we'll do a bit of a question at the end for everybody still around. But is there any final questions on Flavies before we start moving in towards Indo-Aussie species and kind of picking species for you and that kind of topic? I have an unrelated question about King Gorum. Okay, you can ask that. Tell us more about Flavies. What do you want to know about Flavies? Let's go a bit more on Flavies. So let's just do some basics on Flavies. So you got your Flavies. We'll go back because we've done a tangent, which is fine. ADHD, everybody, welcome to the podcast. So you got your Flavies. You had them. You started to raise them. When I was getting a Flavie, what footprint should they be prepared to give up in that house for a pair? Like, what's your minimum realistic size enclosure for a pair of Flavies?
The smallest I have is about 250 deep. It's a very deep cage, that one. It's 250 deep.
That's a very deep cage.
It's very deep, yeah. And then I think it's 150 wide and then 110 tall.
Okay.
That's the smallest.
That's a big cage. So 250 for people that's just over or just under 9 foot. 110 is just shy of 4, and 150 is 5 foot. So it's 5 foot long, 9 foot deep, nearly 9 foot deep, and nearly 4 foot tall. So that's it's a hefty enclosure.
Yeah, it's big, but they're also it's like a panoptis, they're super active. They don't just sit. Even my Tristy, sometimes they'll just sit there for an hour. They don't do anything. The Flavies, every time I come here, they're super active.
Yeah.
They'll be basking. They can bask maybe 5 minutes and then they're on again. Exploring the cage constantly.
And then with the Flavies, recently you've been going more and more LED experimental. What kind of lighting and heating are you running in the Flavie enclosure?
They have the main light is just like LEDs. I think there are 6,400 Kelvin. Then I have the plant lights as well, just a couple of them, just for some additional spectrum, Then they have Arcadia 12% UV lights and double halogen basking. The halogen, I will change them because I don't like them. I will buy the Reptile systems, the eco halogen instead.
Mm-hmm. I haven't tried them. I've heard a lot of people rave about them, but I haven't. I can't comment.
I have one.
And then
now.
You're a fan?
Yeah, I actually am. It gives a very equal basking zone. It's not like a center. Like sometimes when we buy a halogen, it has a center that's super warm, and then it fades out. it seems like these, they may more or less holds it in a bigger area. And then you can change.
What capsule is it? A 75 that you run in there for yours?
No, I'm running 50. 50 is the biggest I use.
Oh, okay. It's not as hot as I thought.
No, I have used
not as hot
70.
as I thought. Not as. I only use 50s for my Savannah. But my basking spot's only sort of 9 inches away from her back. So it all depends. And then winter-wise for the Flavies, do they have a true brumation or do they just sort of slow down?
I can't get them to slow down. Not much, you know. Last winter we weren't home, so I kept them. I think they had a night temperature of like 12 to 14 degrees, and day temperatures were maximum 23. But it's like it was my parents. My parents were taking care of them, and they still had to feed them because they said they went crazy.
Yeah.
So they had to feed them. So
they're incredibly widespread, though, aren't they?
Yeah. If you combine them with the gold eye and the Flavies, then it's a huge area.
Yeah. Which makes sense why they don't slow down, because depending what part of Australia you're in, it's a completely different climate. So if they're the species that they are is adaptive to go across the continent of Australia, it makes sense why they don't slow down. But they will only breed in sort of spring to summer, though, and then they'll slow down breeding regarding temperatures or food.
Yeah, they're the same as all the dwarfs I have. You know, all of them starts more or less the same time. The end of April, start of May, then they start breeding. And then roughly sometimes September, I normally get the last eggs.
I've had quite a late season this year from my Kingorum. My Kingorum are giving me 3 clutches, and she looks gravid again. And we're obviously in October. My room today has been the first day when my room's been cold, and today's the first day we've had the heating on in the house. So the temperatures are starting to change where I live now. So I think they'll slow down pretty soon. But at the minute, they're still can't stop them. Just eggs. So it's hard work.
But with the Flavies, I cannot completely control how many clutches they will lay, but I can get them to lay lesser if I want. This year I have only.
Styling.
Yeah, I think I have like maybe 10, 12 eggs only this year from both combined, both females that are laying.
Do you just knock the food back? Not.
Yeah, they don't get
as much.
Yeah, a little less food and not so heavily misting them.
How often are you misting them normally?
If I really want them breeding, then I will mist them almost every day.
That's something I don't think people realize. Like, I had people messaging me going, "How did you get the Goannas to go?" I can't get Goannas to go. And I'm like, "How often do you miss them?" And they're like, "I don't," or once every week, every 10 days. So I was like, "Yeah, give them a light mist every day. They'll breed." And then a month later, "Oh, they've started breeding." Oh, go figure. I don't think people realize it's I think people just think Australia and think incredibly dry. So it froze them.
Yeah, and the Goannas, I like it hot. The same with the Flavies. It's like you can cook them; they'll just be happy.
What sort of temps do you run for them? What what's the kind of ambient temperature and what kind of basking spot do you aim for? Because this is something that everybody and their dog changes and everyone has their own opinion, especially with something like an Ackie. I've seen Ackie basking temperatures anywhere between 28 and 7 degrees Celsius. It's ludicrous. So what are you running for your Flavies?
The Flavies are around 55. And then the cages, they everywhere from like, of course, in summer it gets warm. The ventilation here starts at 28 degrees. So the warm end of the Flavie cages can easily be like 32, 33. But it's the same
Dan's asking, double checking. Like, sorry, carry on. The Gillenite, my Gillenite.
The same for the Gillenite.
I can't get my Gillenite to seem to be happy because I'm either going too hot or too cold.
I don't think you can get it too hot. My Gillenites in summer, they will the top of their cage without a problem reaches 38, sometimes or close to 40 degrees if we have a really warm summer day here. And they will be up there. They'll just be running around in the top of the cage. They don't use the basking area.
No, I do remember when I had that air condition malfunction in my old house and my whole room 3 degrees. And the Gill and I were just running around and I was like, oh. And I came home recently the other day here and my room was at 35 degrees. This was like in August when we had a really hot day. My room was sort of 35-ish degrees. And I checked the air temperature of the King Gorum enclosure. 40-degree air temperature, not even surface temperature, air temperature. And they were both just sat under the basking spot. Like, how? That's hot. How? My Gill and I have been hunkered away lately, though. I don't know if they can sense something. Because I've just literally redone. I've moved the basking spot up. I've not bothered changing the wattage of the lamp because we're going into winter now, so I didn't see them. My Gill and I this year, whether it's because I moved and they're a bit straight, I don't know. But my Gill and I this year have been not Gill and I. They've been just hidden away. They've been tucked away. So I don't know what's gone on with them this year.
Well, I don't know if the new surroundings affects them. I can see with the Gutload I got from Jonas when they got into their first little cage to like get them established and eating, they were not super active. Then I moved them to a bigger one, then they started being active. And then now they're in their permanent cage and they are super active. They have all this space and they use all of it. And they're hungry, constantly
hungry. Yeah, I need to upgrade mine. Maybe I need to put them in a 4 instead of a 4-foot tall, put them in a 6, because at the minute they're in a 4-foot tall. Maybe I should put them in a 6-foot tall and see if it will change anything. Because I can still use the same footprint that they have and just put a taller enclosure. And then it's probably easier to get it hotter in a bigger enclosure as well, because you have more control over the temperature, over the airflow.
Yeah, it's easier. You can keep it super warm in the top and then the bottom. See, my cages in summer in the bottom, they can still hold maybe 23, 24 degrees only. And then the top is like almost 40.
It's very similar to Ben. My Gill and I set a 65-degree basking spot. Top half of the cage is 30 to 35 degrees. Cool low point 23 to 27. So, yeah, it's all about choice. Just giving them a choice of where to be. I mean, my temperatures are very to that, but my Gill and I have done absolutely F all this year. They've just been tucked and hidden away. And I'll come in and one will be out. And I'm like, oh my God, like, wow, I haven't seen you in weeks. But now we're going into winter. I'm going to see them again now. So let's hope for a better next year. But the babies or the juveniles that I have, they're super active. They're running around. I've recently upgraded them. They're in a much bigger enclosure for their size. And they're running around like little crazy people. They're in and out of everything. And I'm like, this is the Goannas that I know and love. I don't know what's going on with my adults. Right. There's no more on Flavies unless there's... Do you want to do diet? Let's do diet. What kind of... From a young... Because obviously you've bred them. And you've got adults. So from a young Flavy to an adult Flavy, what does the diet regime, regularity, and prey items consist of for you?
Well, as babies, I try to feed them almost every day, but they'll eat anything. They don't care if it's like quail eggs, quail chicks, mice, whatever, insects. I haven't had... The only thing they don't really seem to eat was superworms. That they don't bother. But roaches, crickets, grasshoppers. And then when they get like my holdbacks now, they're probably around 60 centimeters. I feed them every 2-3 days. And then my adults in summer, they also get fed every 2-3 days if I really want to breed them. And then now we're getting like, it's fall, so we're slowing down, and I feed them like 2 times a week only through winter as well.
And when you get into winter, are you feeding them just kind of like maintenance foods like insects, or are you still feeding heavy calorific like chick and mice?
They get some insects, and then they'll get chicks and mice maybe once a week. If I only feed them insects, they'll go crazy, like they're constantly hungry. So I often give them something. They get something a little heavier.
Yeah, it's like my Indicus. She'll go crazy over bugs, but they just don't touch the sides. So I could feed her 400 locusts and she'd still be running around for food, whereas fills her up for a week. So yeah, it's all about balance and variety. All right, Leo, thank you very much for the super chat. We're going to go quickly into Ackies. We both keep Ackies, so we can go into this. I will start. What's your favorite setup for an Ackie monitor? I mean, I think Ackie monitors are, how can I word this politely, abused in the hobby. I think 4x2x2 is a ludicrous minimum for an Ackie. I think that's mental that people are offering 4x2x2 as a minimum for an Ackie. Don't get me wrong, they will live, they will, but I don't think you can get the temperature, lighting, heating gradient, what they need in a 4x2x2. For me, a bare minimum would be a 6 long, 2 deep, 3 tall as a minimum. My pair aren't back in the 6x3x3, but they were in a 6x3x3 before I moved. So 180 by 90 by 90. And I really, really enjoy my Ackie. My Ackies in a 6x3x3 enclosure now, which I don't like. I'm not going to pretend I really don't, but having moving house and life, they are in just a temporary holding enclosure. But for me, 12 to 14% UV, 2 LEDs, 1 to 2 halogens to create a basket spot, similar to what we've been talking about with Goannas, sort of 560 degrees. Make sure with an Ackie as well, you have deep soil or a humid box, because they will lose their toes, they will get stuck shed, they will run into issues if you don't give them that humid retreat. If you look into an Akkie's ecology in the wild, they're living on rocks, and when Australia gets too hot, what do? They go to ground, they seek the humid, cooler refuge. So we have to replicate that in captivity. It doesn't matter if it's a plastic box or 2 foot of soil, as long as you can replicate that. For me, that's pretty good. Mr. Scandinavian Goannas, I know you probably keep your Ackies in an Ackie mansion, but what's your opinion on that?
I actually don't. My Ackies, they don't have the super big cage. I think the Ackie cage is 150 times 99 and times 90. But then I have stacked it with cork. They have super many cork tubes. So their active surface area is huge for them. For me, the active surface area is more important than the cage size itself.
Oh yeah, you could have a 6, but if you had nothing off the floor, what's the point? So yeah, you could have a 4x2x2 fully climbable walls with real thought out usable space in comparison to an empty 6x2x3. So yeah, it's all about the enclosure design for sure.
Yes, mine is simple. It's just the cork tubes, basking, LEDs, UV. They have a 80-liter plastic top for like nesting and digging, and they seem to be happy. They produced okay this year.
I mean, mine, in the sense of being right now, mine are in a right now currently, which I am planning on changing. It just hasn't happened yet. 4x2x3, which I think is way too small, but they're laying eggs. She's given me 4 clutches since being here, since moving. They are going back in a 6x3x3. I just need to rearrange my room and get some money. But you can do it. And again, what I've done is I've done a cork tube. So they've got a whole ladder on the back, and I've got 2 cork tubes going across the front, so they can go in and out and on down. And then they've got a 2 foot by 2 foot by a foot box. I think it's like 50 liters. They can dig and rummage around in that. So you can do it, but I think you do a disservice to the animal. Because when I put them in a 6-foot, they were it's probably in one of my reptile rooms of my old house. They were in a 6x3x3. They used every inch. Like monitors, the problem with monitors, they're wonderful. They make you feel incredibly guilty because no matter what you put them in, you feel like it's too small because they just, like, you've probably seen Kermit here. He's using every single inch. And if I had him in a 9-foot, 10-foot wide, 10-foot deep, he would do the same. And you would, it's just the joys of keeping varanids, to be honest. I've seen Ackies basking in the wild on rocks 60 degrees and then dark down on rock cracks, which are 23. So there we go. So it's just all about giving them choice. But for me, if anyone ever wants to reach out to me on Instagram to ask questions, that I know I'm missing a lot here, or get any information, then let me know. There is another question here, which I know is a hot topic at the minute. Have you ever kept Pilborensis?
I've only done it for a very, very short time, so I don't have much experience with them. They're just not my thing.
Because similar. I had one for all of about 2 months, and then I sold it. So for people watching, you don't know something's your thing until you've kept it. Like, I could describe a mangrove in 2 ways. I could go me and my truth and how wonderful I think they are. And then I can go the reality of how horrible they are. So there's, depending who you listen to, you pick your poison. So how do you go about finding what's for you? What is there a thought process that you go behind, or do you just keep it and go, yeah, it's for me? There's a gut feeling as to how do you flesh that out?
Yeah. Well, normally I will go check out other people that are keeping them, on social media and see how they are. You can find videos of most species online today. Then you can see like how they are with different people, and of course, there's the visual aspect. You also want something you think is nice to look at. And pilbaras, they are nice. They're nice looking, but they're just not for me. Some
I
species
find
I
they're
need.
very shy.
Yeah, very shy. But the same is said about tristies.
True. True.
You see, and right now I have two young tristies checking me out. They're not shy at all. The same with the old ones, they're also not shy.
My tristas were very shy. I think another thing with monitors, I think as well, you can be really unlucky and get. So, for example, Ackies for the most part are pretty personable and pretty bold. Of course, shy Ackies exist. So you read about Ackies, bold, personable, active, friendly, inquisitive. One, it just happens to be shy because they're all sentient individuals. Whereas you could get something like Tristus and be like, oh, they're shy, and then you've got 4 that are wonderful. So it all depends as well. But for me, I think I have to have something I can interact with, and that doesn't have to be play with and cuddle, but I have to be able to observe it, and it has to not be scared of me. And obviously that takes time to build, but at the end of it, I can interact with. It has to be something that's out for the most part, because if I don't see it, I personally find it hard to make it. And it has to be something I can house comfortably. If I feel like I can't house it, for example, Asian water monitors, I'm never going to be able to house one. So it doesn't matter how much I love them. Like, spoiler alert, I don't love them at all. But, or for example, Uinoi tricolor monitors. I love them. Wonderful, wonderful lizards. Where do I put it? I would never own one. So those for me are the criteria that I go through before I pick an animal. And I've fallen short to that. I brought a Dorianus once that I knew I probably couldn't house, and I brought it. It was cool. And I couldn't house it. I couldn't do it justice. I went against my own rules, and I ended up having to move that animal on. So it's all about learning and finding what works for you anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely because the cage size alone, for a lot of the species. I kept Dorianos as well, long time ago. And the male I had, it wasn't not a massive looking animal, but it was long. It was like, I think if you measured it, it would be close to at least 140 centimeters.
It's a big lizard.
That's a big lizard with some really nasty teeth.
Fast, smart, active.
Yeah. But I would probably do it again if I had the space.
Crazy. I had one, and it had a mouth infection when I brought it. Its gum was swollen, and I didn't notice when I brought it. It was in the enclosure like the day I got it, and I was like, what's that? So I had to get this lizard back out, and he was 110, 120 centimeters. He was pretty big. I'm holding this lizard, peeling its gum to have a look, and I said to Fee, we're gonna have to treat it. She was like, I'm not getting anywhere near it. And I was like, but I can't hold it and treat it. I can't do it. So we ended up having to get like cotton wool at the end of a bamboo pole, and she was swabbing this lizard's mouth. I was like, I can't even care for this lizard if it hurts itself, because it's too much lizard for me to deal with. Like, at least Manga kind of hold her and restrain her in one hand and treat her with the other, whereas this Dorianus was too big, too powerful. And that was another thing I kind of didn't realize until I got it. And I was like, oh my God, if it, God forbid, itself, how do we look after it? Like, how do I give it its best? Same as these people that have massive snakes. Something happened, like you're never holding that snake on your own. You're never restraining that snake and treating it on your own. So that's all stuff that you need to take into account.
Definitely, just the male flabby. I wouldn't be able to hold them and then treat them. I can't do. They're strong like shit, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine. They're running
So
all
it's
day,
like-
so I can imagine their muscles. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hold it, but you won't be able to treat it.
Yeah. It's hard work. Even when Toad, she was only small. She was only sort of 70 centimeters when she cut her side. Even trying to hold her securely and treat her gently, hard to do. But Fee didn't mind helping with that one because she's a lot smaller and a lot less intimidating. It's not right by the mouth. It's, you know, can hold the head and stuff. So, yeah. Right. Any more questions on flabbies, everyone? Because we're going to move on because we kind of danced around them for an hour and a half. So let's talk species regions. So let's just start with your pros and cons to Indonesian compared to Australian monitors. What are your pros and cons?
Well, with the most of the Indo species I have kept were big, so you know you need big cages.
Yeah.
No, they need big water ponds. You know, you can't just give them a water bowl like you can do with an Aussie. So again, either you get some really good pumps and filtration, or you have to change water constantly with Indo species. I don't bother changing water constantly. With my Indicus, I had a 400-liter pond. It's like I can't change it every other day. So I had to get like a really good pump. But other than that, I love Indo species. You know, I love them. There's just something about them. That's why I'm getting more.
Do you think they're, because a lot of people say they're smarter after keeping Indo and Aussie species, not necessarily based on an individual, because you could have a really smart individual Aussie, but overall, Indos or the Aussies are smarter?
The Indos are definitely smarter than the dwarf Australians, that's for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But with the larger ones, I don't know if the Aussies are more smart than the Indos or vice versa. Because the mangroves I had, they were smart enough. But then, of course, with larger Australians, I only had the flabbies. I never kept others of the larger ones. And the flabbies are smart enough. We have had our battles.
Yes. How did they how did Indicus compare to Panoptes for intelligence?
Then I would say the Indicus are smarter than Panoptes. But I think Panoptes, because a lot of what you just see is this food drive. Every time you come there, you don't really see the Panoptes like you should. Like in the wild, the Panoptes, you know? When you keep them.
No, that's a good point.
When you keep Panoptes, every time they see you, they think it's food. Every time. The flabbies have that as well. A lot of the times when they see me, they think it's feeding time.
Yeah.
The Indicus was not
mango.
My Indicus was not like that at all. It's like if I had a walk-in cage for a flabby, you wouldn't just go in there and sit down, because you would end up with a flabby somewhere trying to eat you.
Attached.
But
Attached
my
to them.
mangroves, my mangroves, you see, I could just go in there. I could sit on the edge of the pond. I could give the male a back scratch. He wouldn't care.
Sounds wonderful. Mango is she's probably part Flavy or part Panoptes because she's not smart in the sense of she always thinks she's being fed, but once she realizes she's not being fed, and becomes a mangrove, you can see. But these guys here, like the Bracinus complex, I've not worked with Panoptes or Flavies or I've worked with a few of the bigger African rock monitors. They're pretty dumb, but the tree monitors for me take the crown. For I know people say Salvador is probably the most intelligent. I've not worked with those, but the tree monitors for me seem to be highly individualized. But then I also think it makes a massive difference between their heritage, because Australians are obviously all captive bred, whereas a lot of these Indos we're interacting with are either wild caught or first generation captive. So it's hard to gauge intelligence with these animals when they're not used to people, shall we say.
Yeah, there will be a big difference, of course, because it's like, look at Ackies. How many generations do we have Ackies captive bred now? Nobody can really know anymore because it's constantly we have new generations of Ackies. Then maybe you're already at what, 50 generations?
Yeah, they've been captive bred for years, haven't they?
And then the mangroves. Does anybody even have a second generation?
I think Kai does, but other than that, no. Outside of maybe Indonesia, but they're
Then we have 2-3 generations versus 50-60 generations. It has to have a difference. It has to make a difference.
But what's interesting about that is if we think the Indos are smarter and they're not even habituated to captivity like the Aussies, how much lost potential, how much are we missing from those Indonesian monitor brains that's waiting to be unlocked through generations of captive breeding?
That's a good question. Only time will tell. But we need people.
This is it. There's no answer to it.
No. But we need people to start breeding more into stuff.
Why do you think people don't? Do you think it's purely their size? Or I know they're hard, of course they are, but what do you think the turn off towards the bigger Indonesian? Because everyone loves tree monitors. No matter who you are, even if you don't like monitors, you can appreciate tree monitors. They seem to be god-like status. But what do you think it is about the Indo? Because even the Indo-Audatria are not, they're not popular. What do you think it is about the Indo species that puts people off?
With the Indicors, I think it has a lot to do with the price. People don't bother because you see, even today, I can get an Indicus import €250.
Yeah.
And then people don't bother breeding them because if they can only sell them around €200-300, then they don't bother doing the cage size and the maintenance of breeding them. And then you only get €200-300. Whereas tree monitors, you breed them, they need smaller cages than a mangrove, and you get a lot more money for them.
You do. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. I wonder why Affenbergi, Timorensis, I wonder why they aren't as popular, because they're kind of in the middle.
Yeah, but Timors used to come in a lot, imports. before we could always, every import from Indonesia before I could get Timors, all kind of localities, and they were not expensive, the imports, so people don't bother, again, because they know there'll be an import maybe in 3 months again. And then suddenly somebody in Indonesia tries to scam somebody over there, and now the government says we don't want them exported. At least that was what I was told by the German importer. He said his guys he know in Indonesia that exports weren't allowed to export them this year.
Scary. I think one day it's just going to stop. One day we're going to wake up and there'll be no more legal Indonesian exports. Something will happen with either the Indonesian government or something like that, and we'll be scrambling to collect what blood we have to breed certain species. Do you? Okay, I'll go. I feel kind of responsible that I'll use Indicus as an example. I feel kind of responsible to keep Indicus alive in the UK. There's a couple of people doing it, and there's a couple of people trying. As much as my success has only been parthenogenesis, I've done parthenogenesis 3 babies, but 2 clutches, and I have another egg that's on like 95 days in the incubator, which is fertile, and I have another clutch which looks good. So no, Mango clearly is the Virgin Mary, as it were. And I have a pair raising up, and one of the pair is a captive bred or parthenogenetic, whatever we're going to call it. Anyway, I feel kind of personally responsible to keep Indicus in the UK, and it's obviously impossible to do on my own. Obviously, like I'd be able to produce a few, but I'm never going to be able to sustain the whole of the UK. Indicus is probably a bad example because obviously they're not that popular, but that's why I hold on to Indicus personally, because I feel responsible. Do you feel like that's another reason why you're being drawn more towards Indo species? You feel kind of like if I don't do it, no one will? Or do you not think that comes into play with you?
Kind of. And then as we have talked about, all these different island localities with the Indicus, nobody has really checked that much into them. Are they all really Indicus, or will in 5 years will we have 10, 20 new species from all these different islands? And if we know Europe, if somebody gets classified as a new species, they won't allow it in.
Yeah.
It's already getting tricky now with some of the species, with the size. There's a maximum import size now.
Yeah. It's going away. It's going to happen. And it's happening. And we're not. I say we're not, but as a hobby, I think we're just ignoring it. We're just going, yeah, they'll be all right. They'll always be here. They'll always be imported, especially in America, where it's imported in, excuse me, at a dime a dozen. I think they take it for granted for what they have. I don't know what the answer is, but I've recently got a peacock burger again because I feel the same. I'm like, well, if I don't start doing it, then who's going to? There's a couple of people here doing Affenberger, but I just feel responsible for that sort of stuff, which I don't think is healthy, to be honest, because it kind of puts too much pressure on keeping rather than just enjoying.
Yeah, but that's why, as a single person, you always have to remember you can't be responsible for the whole hobby if the species stay or go. You're only responsible for your own collection.
No, I know, and it's hard. If it was down to me, I'd probably sell a lot of stuff and just keep 3 monitors, but I keep holding off. 1, and 2, because I'm pretty attached to a lot of the animals I have here. But I do love these bloody things. They are quite annoying when you're trying to do a podcast and you just got on the glass come out, but yeah,
I
I do
have
love
that
them.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Somebody's gonna have some naughty lizard soon going when in December.
Yes.
Somebody's gonna
well,
have his hat full.
I wonder who.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, Leo's back. Hello, Leo. Thank you very much. It was you who did one before. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Leo with the second super chat of the night. Thank you very much, Leo. What's your favorite Australian monitor and why? Okay, this is loaded because there's two. So we'll start with yourself. Favorite, just favorite monitor, and then favorite monitor that's legally in the hobby.
Favorite is like, of course, the Parenti. I love them. I've seen them.
Yeah.
I've seen them in a zoo here in Denmark. They have one. They're just awesome.
Wonderful.
But of Australian species we can get here in Europe, well, I kind of know there are some legal ones left. So of legal species, I would go with Spencer.
Okay, yeah.
I always loved Spencer.
They're I don't know if you saw the podcast today. Chris Applin did it. With I believe his name was Ross. If it's not, I'm sorry, but he's an Australian photographer. He's taken some really nice pictures of Spencer Eye that Chris shared on the podcast. I don't think he's published yet, and it was like one up on its back legs with its arms like this, huffing, tongue out. It was a really nice picture of Spencer's. So for me, Parenti probably. The Parenti is arguably my favorite on the planet. It's just stunning. And then Glebal Palmer, if I can't pick Parenti, because you pick Parenti. So I'm going to go with Glebal Palmer, which is the Black Palm Rock monitor, which is basically the Audatra version of a Parenti. And my favorite legal species we have in the hobby from Australia is probably a normal lace monitor, normal phase lace monitor, wild type lace monitor. I adore Varus. I think they're incredible. Probably never own one, but I think lace monitors are gorgeous. So yeah, there's my answers. I hope that's a good enough answer for you, Leo. Appreciate the super chats, my friend. It helps me keep the lights on. Okay, so where weren't we? We were on about Australian monitors, Indo monitors, feeling responsible for the hobby. So outside of the species that we know that you're planning on getting, is there any future plans to go more into Indo stuff, or are you going to get this? You generally feel like you're happy with where you are, adding the one more addition that you're adding, or like you found your peace with it?
No, I haven't yet. There is one more that I could have gotten this time if I wanted. But we would all have limits on our budget, so I had to pick only one species to get. But I know this other species, it's already here in Denmark. My friend has a pair. It is a mangrove, at least for now. But they're tiny.
Yeah.
Those I would like as well.
They were appealing. Yeah.
So maybe next year, if we're lucky. And then I will probably be done.
How to word this question? Because I obviously know you. You and I we speak quite a lot, and we're very similar. So I'll speak for myself, and I'll get your opinion on it and your wisdom on it. because I've said to Fee, one more species, I'm done. Right, in the confinements of this building that we're in, I'm done. I can't house anymore after this one species. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a species now. Piranha spinulosus becomes available. The Solomon Islands spiny neck monitor. I adore spinulosus. All of a sudden, a shipment comes in. I can afford them. Definitely can't house them. I believe I'm going to buy some. And I probably shouldn't, but I probably will. And then I'm sitting here going, no, one more species comes on. And that one more species isn't spinulosus, but there's always something. What do you think that is? I'm going to say in us. And if you don't agree with what I've just said, just say, no, Paul, in you. But what do you think that is in us as reptile keepers that always gives us that need to have more, even though we know we can't and know we shouldn't?
I think often it's the excitement. You know, it's exciting to get something new, something different. And then also, if you're like super passionate, then again, you get easily lured in. Suddenly, somebody sends you a list of available stuff, and you know you have the budget
You have free
for
peach
it.
throats.
Yeah, and then 3 more others coming in.
Yeah. I don't blame
But
you
it's
though for getting them.
It's hopefully babies as well, small ones. I think they also are very small babies.
I think they will be, yeah. And they're slow growing. So a couple of years before you got to worry about building cages.
Yeah, so it would be okay. In a couple of years, then maybe I'll have a lesser rodatry. I don't know. They just don't. The Australian dwarfs, they just don't do it anymore. You know, it's not the same for me. There is some, of course, the Story, the Tristis. The Tristis I like. I really enjoy Tristis. And the Story, I think I just like Story because it's like so tiny, and yet it thinks it can take on a parenti, you know. The Story, I think they can.
That's pretty cool.
They don't care.
You've made me want Story. I recently, like the King Gorum I have are they're mats. They're just here. I'm looking after them. You know them. And King Gorum in pictures have never really done it for me. Like they're always okay, but I've never been. And now I'm keeping them. And whether it's because they're new, whether it's because it's the excitement, whether it's because it's the challenge, but I'm really liking King Gorum. They're pretty cool. And they don't have the attitude of what you describe Story to have. So I'm like a King Gorum tail, but King Gorum size, but with a mangrove attitude, in this case based on mango. I'm like, that sounds amazing, but you just can't find them here. They just don't exist. But yeah, and then there's because they're small, they're much easier. I mean, I'll go on to this because I'm just, thank you very much for Reddit Dragons for the super chat, because I was about to say because they're small, they're easier to house. So I'll load it into this question as well. Is there a size cutoff where you feel monitor species no longer make good? If so, what's your size cutoff? So Tree has said anything bigger than a Kelonite. So I like the King Gorum because you can house them in a arguably commercially available enclosure, and it'd be good for them if you give them all that they need in the in a commercially available. You don't have to build enclosure, you don't have to go out there, so Story appeal to me for that because they're a dwarf Ackie. But back to Serenity's question, as someone who keeps 100 centimeter long lizards, has kept up to 140 centimeter long lizards or bigger with Panoptes, do you feel like there's a size cutoff where a monitor gets too big to become a good pet? And what do we define as a good pet as well? Because what's good for you is going to be different for me. So I think we need to decipher what a good pet is and then the sizing of it.
As a pet, for like something that would be okay for everybody to keep, I don't think I would go much bigger than Audatrias. Audatrias everybody can keep. You don't need anything like special to keep, special sizes for Audatria. We can all go buy a cage somewhere where you can keep Audatria. But when we go past the Audatria, then we start having to build the cages ourselves. We need a lot of space. You see the Flavis, it's 1 meter lizards. I have 4 meter long cages. My biggest cage is 4 meter. And that's just what. That's just a lizard. That's 1 meter. You see the Jobies. I'm thinking about a cage that's 2.7 meters tall, and it will be at least 2.7 meters long and 130 deep. That's the absolute minimum I will do for a pair.
Yeah, it's huge.
And they only get to what? They get to 120, I think, normally max.
Yeah. You can. There's 1 or 2 localities that arguably push 150, but you're looking at 100 to 120 for a big male on average. Yeah.
So when you pass that, you see, but Panoptes, personally, I don't know many people that can keep Panoptes good, because my Panoptes male, he was about 1.5 meters and almost 5 kilo. That's a damn big lizard.
Wow. That's a very big lizard. Yeah,
and it's like a normal monitor lizard, but with ADHD. They're constantly hyperactive. They're active constantly. So you need like huge cages for them. And
I could never own one.
I think Panoptes and Vajus are the biggest. Kumingi, they're the biggest we can keep here in Denmark. We can't keep the regular water monitors. They're not legal. Salvadori is not legal. Nile monitor is not legal. But still, if you have an adult male Kumingi, you still need a huge space.
Yeah, there's still,
of course,
there's still 4 foot, 4 and a bit foot.
Yeah, and I know people that has the space for like Kumingi and stuff like that, but it's just not for everyone. I've seen some of the.
I think. I can't carry on. Sorry, mate. Thanks.
I have seen some of the big water monitors when I was in Thailand. I don't know. I would have to offer my entire room for those animals. Some of the biggest I saw in Thailand are huge. So it's like they need a swimming pool and stuff as well.
I think there's a difference between owning, keeping, and doing justice. Like you could keep an Asian water monitor in a 8x4x4. Of course you can. Is it humane? No, but you can do it. And I think that's where the tricky territory lies. Again, a mangrove. You can keep a mangrove in a 6x2x2. Of course you can. Should you? No, but you can. So that's for me where it gets. I think a good pet is something that you can commercially house. Like you can walk into most pet shops or go online and find an easily available enclosure. And I agree, sort of Tristus / tree monitor size. Tristus being sort of basing on 80-90 centimeters. My Kermit, my male tree monitor is maybe sort of 90 centimeters, 100 centimeters, but obviously all tail. I don't think, because like when I say to people 26 inches, so that's 70 centimeters, 60 7 centimeters. It's not too big, but she's bulky. There's a difference between a tristis, which is head and body like this, and a long tail, or a mangrove, which is a big bulk, So there's I don't think size is to depict, but I think like a 60 to 65 centimeter long lizard is big enough for the hobby. I don't think tristis I know are bigger, Glauity, Kimberleys I know are bigger because of tail, but I think you can't really correctly house much bigger than that without, like you said, going custom. I think that is where the line is. If it's something that you have to custom buy or custom build, it's too big for the commercial hobby to be a good pet for me, because people aren't willing to spend the money on it either. Like a custom enclosure this size is wood, sort of 600-700 quid to not build it yourself. So you've got to be willing to pay that sort of money if you want to own these, and that kind of money isn't necessarily commercially available, because it's commercial is across the board. So for me, yeah, I agree. Audatria, the smaller Audatria, if we're going for it. But yeah, tristis, you do tristis immaculate. Tristis can be done smaller and still be okay. Ackies can be done smaller and still be okay. Goannas can be done smaller and still be okay. Whether he should or shouldn't, that's a completely different story. But yeah, I think 2.5 foot is the biggest, and Indonesian water monitors, Serenity Dragons, are lunatics. I don't know where people put them. All jokes aside, I know Serenity Dragons are building a massive outdoor enclosure. Great. They're 10 months of the year or whatever it is. They're Salvatore can live outside. Completely different circumstance to living in Europe, where maybe 1 month of the year they can live outside. There recently was an import into the UK, and there was like 30, 40 different Asian water monitors across 8 different localities, and I'm just like, where are we going? Where are they? It frustrates me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's also, we see a lot of them being bred, the water monitors, but we don't see that many adults anywhere.
No.
But it's the same with the savannas. They used to be huge imports.
It's the dark truth, really. It's like we see all the babies, but no adults.
Yeah. You can see how many savanna monitors has been imported over time. They should be everywhere. But you barely see
yeah,
adults.
They should, yeah. Yeah.
There's barely adults.
Yeah, it's incorrect care, incorrect husbandry, incorrect diet, incorrect housing, because they're not commercially available, but they start this big and everyone thinks they're super cute and let's buy them. But it's a harsh reality. It's a harsh reality owning a lizard like that.
Yeah, and they're cheap. Or used to be cheap. I don't know the pricing today.
They still are cheap here in the UK. You can pick one up for probably about 50 quid. Not paying any more than sort of £80 for obviously a wild one. It's pretty sad. Like, I still have Bumpy here. She's my Savannah. To be completely honest, I'm keeping her in too small. In my old house, she was in a good size for her. About 2 foot long. She's about 60 centimeters. She's not very big. And when we moved, I had to downsize. She's still okay. I've made use of the space. She's got some massive logs in there she can completely use. But I feel guilty. So I'm like, okay, I know I can't give her more, so I probably should move her on. But what's the lesser of two evils? Being in too small enclosure, but having everything she needs, or going to the unknown where savannas go. It's a really, really, really hard decision to make. I don't know what to do, to be honest.
That's why I have always steered clear of them. I don't want them in my collections. They're really just not for me.
It's hard because you get attached to them. But they are cool lizards. The osteoderms on the back of the neck, the end of they're dinosaurs. They're cool. But like she's got 2 UVBs in there, 2 50-watt halogens in there, 2 4-foot LEDs in there. So a lot of electricity for 1 2-foot lizard. It's ridiculous just for one lizard. She uses more energy than my bearded dragon, my toad-headed goannas, and these 2 raise-up enclosures. My savanna uses more electricity than all of those. But yeah, I do. She does come out. Baum. She does come out. She does roam around. I just feel guilty. I don't like keeping in small. Like for me, if a lizard looks small in the enclosure, you're doing well. Like Kermit, you can only see this much of the enclosure because you can't see the depth on the camera. But when you see he does look small in the enclosure, so I'm okay with that. But Bumpy looks kind of big in her enclosure, and I my internal dialogue doesn't like that. But I don't think letting her go is better, because where does she go? If she came here and was like, I can give her this, okay, take her. Like, it's not about being selfish. It's just about trying to find her home, which is hard because they're an unwanted species. So yeah, it's one of those things. Hello, Octopus with no friends. You've got some friends now. Right. Got some questions on my phone we can run through. Unless there's anything in people in chat. I know I've missed some of your questions, but to be completely honest with all of you, I'm not going to scroll back up. So I'll ask you questions now. We're going to do a bit of a Q&A, run through some questions, and then done by then it'd be like 2.5, 3 hours. We've been running for 2 hours, so we'll see. Before we go into Q&A, is there anything you want to touch on, mate, that we've not touched on yet?
We could touch on a lot of stuff. We only scratched the surface.
We can talk about it. I'm happy to talk about whatever.
We haven't been onto the feeders. Haven't been to the feeders. That's a lot.
That's a long talk.
The incubation.
Yeah. We can talk about it.
There's a lot we could talk about.
Yeah, whatever you like.
I mainly do all my feeders by myself. By next year, I should be able to produce 100% of my feeders, except for a little bit for the jobienses, the prawns and fish and crabs and stuff.
Yeah, the crustacean stuff. Yeah.
That I don't bother, but all insects I breed myself. The rodents I breed a little bit because I don't use much. And then I have some quails going. Now I have figured out how to hatch the quail eggs. So now it's just a matter of getting them to lay in spring, and then we're going.
So how much time does it take? That's not better. Oh, that's okay. How much time does it take to maintain just your feeder selection?
It actually don't take as much time as you would think. The quails, they have food for days and water for days at a time. So the quails, they don't take up much time. The cockroaches, you can pretty quickly run through the cockroach boxes, some dry food, some fruit. The crickets, I check my crickets every 2-3 days. They don't get any vegetables. They don't get any fruit, anything like that. My crickets, they simply get water and dry food. I only breed crickets because I wanted to see if it was possible this way. Because then my cricket breeding, it doesn't smell. I hear from a lot of people that breeding crickets smell a lot. I don't smell anything with my crickets. And they breed a lot.
Is that because you're keeping them naturally, or is it the way that you're keeping them, or?
I think it might have to do with the feeding. They don't get all kind of like fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. They get a little bit of dried, they get some pollen and some spirulina and some moringa. And then it's mixed with some high quality koi food, some bee pollen, and then some chicken starter feeders. It's all grinded to a powder. And then they only get water. The only way they can get moisture
them... Yeah, go on. Do you do
the only
trays?
I have trays, yeah, with a piece of like cloth in the middle. So that's enough for them. They can easily get all the water they need that way.
So let's go into it then. Why do you think it's important to breed all your own feeders and supplement them with your own blend of Gutload?
I can only speak for Denmark, but it's hard to get good quality feeders here. A lot of the feeders that we can buy online, they're shipped from Germany to an online store in Denmark in cricket boxes. And then they get shipped from the online store to me or whoever buys them. So I don't know how many days they have been on their way. And often they just die within a short time because they're too dehydrated, even if you give them water.
Yeah.
And when I do my own, I know exactly what they get. I know exactly what they've been raised on. All of my feeders, except the quails, they get more or less homemade food. My quails and my rodents, of course, they don't. And the only thing the insects don't get that's homemade is the pollen and the chicken food.
Pollen's a hot topic because some people say it's bad, some people say it's a must. I think if you look at bugs in the wild, they're going to be smothered in pollen because pollen's everywhere. I think pollen's vital. I think people are sleeping on pollen. But why have you introduced pollen into your Gutload, into your mixes?
That's years ago when I stumbled on the benefits done in human testing with pollen and looked into the nutrients in pollen. There's nothing more complex. They say pollen is really nature's superfood. We can't even create it artificial. We can get all the compounds in the right mixtures. It just don't react to each other the same way. And there's a lot. There's I think there's over 250 different nutrients in pollen.
Wow,
a lot of it is protein as well, and some of that protein is like free amino acids, so they're ready for the body to like absorb right away. I don't think
those. No, carry on. Sorry.
I don't think there can be any like bad side effects from pollen. It's completely natural. There's no artificial stuff in pollen. I have used it for now, I don't know how many years with all my animals. I haven't seen any negative side effects, not even on the insects.
No, I think pollen's good. I think like I say, animals are going to be covered in it. Full stop. Whether it's in them or whether it's on them, pollen is in the air. So I think adding it to the diet for me is something I need to do. So here in the UK, again, I can only talk for the UK feeder insects. There's two main suppliers. One of which is Monkfield, who I now work for, and I've actually seen the insect farm myself, and it's all very interesting. And I've seen how the bugs get packed and done, and I'm not just saying it because I just wouldn't have brought it up, but they're good quality. But then the problem is how shops will then look after the bugs and how long the bugs are on the shop shelf, or how long the bugs are sitting there until they get delivered to somewhere else. Because, like you say, they're hydrated and bits and bobs like that. So my advice to people in the UK is, if you have a local reptile shop, ask to buy the bugs in bulk straight from Monkfield, and get the bulk and pick them up on the delivery run, so you get them straight away if you can't be bothered to breed them yourselves, like me. And they come pre-gut loaded, so because they're always feeding them anyway. And then if you wanted to feed with a more intricate gut load, you can, but they are ready to feed out of the bag. Just add something in. But I think if you have the time, skill, and know how to breed insects, overall, it's going to be much better for your animals. I do completely agree. I don't disagree at all. So what species are you breeding across all taxa? How many bugs have you got?
I have a lot. I have the flower beetles. Then I have the big brown field crickets. Then I have Dubia. I have the red runners. I have the pantanal. Then I have an Australian cockroach. I can't remember the scientific name of it. Then I have the discoids I got from you. There's a few of them that survived.
How are they? That's good. I was going to say, how are they? I packed a few. I don't know the sexes. I just threw a bunch in. Mine are slowly dying up there.
I think there's 11 that survived.
Okay. That should be enough to get something started.
Yeah. And then beside that, I have another species of cockroaches I have a little bit of. I can't remember the name of it. Then I do waxworms. And then I have started doing... Yeah, waxworms are easy. And then I started doing grasshoppers again.
They're not so easy.
They're easy. They're breeding like crazy.
A lot of people struggle to do locusts. How do you keep your breeders?
I just have them in a 70-liter top with a lot of ventilation. But I think often it depends on the species. I have the ones they call desert locusts.
Yeah.
I have had the European one as well, the big one, but that one is super picky. It mainly just eat grass and stuff. So it's it's harder to. This desert one, you can just feed it whatever. They eat almost anything.
Yeah.
But they like it warm. Warm and bright. So they have an LED, they have a basking bulb, and then they have some dry food, and then they get the fresh food every day. They need fresh food every single day. Minimum one time a day. I think mine kept between 30 and 35 degrees. Then they will, they're adults in 27 days from they hatch.
It's crazy how fast they grow.
They grow super. That's why it's such a good feeder. If I can get them going again, I will probably skip the crickets. I will stop breeding crickets. And then just do grasshoppers.
What's your favorite feeder?
It is probably the grasshoppers
Hmm.
because they don't hide.
Mm.
Also, because in the big cages, if I just throw in some dubia, the lizards won't find the dubia in the big cages.
No, they bury down and hide, don't they?
Yeah, so they have to be used like either by tweezer or by using a food bowl or something. Whereas the grasshoppers, you can just throw them in; they don't hide.
I
And even
find
the flammies.
the wing motion go crazy. They go crazy for the flying, flapping as well.
Yeah, I tried that with Glowerty with these Australian cockroaches the other day. They also go crazy when you grab them with a tweezer. And then the Glowerite also went crazy. They went completely crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that a Glowerty can actually jump 60 centimeters from one branch to a shelf.
That guy, I don't even actually know his name, but Blood Dragons on Instagram, he has, and he's got his in like a 180, 150 long, and he gets a locust and it's flapping. I think it's his male Kimberly, just launches itself like quite far for this bug. It's pretty impressive to see. I think his name's Rom. I want to say it's Rom. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I just know him as Blood Dragons. But anyway, they
Yeah, I think I know
they're pretty.
who he is.
Yeah, he's got the Cordensis. He has the Glowerty. He's got
He got
Similis
Similis
as well.
Yeah.
Very jealous. Very, very jealous. But no, he's a good guy. Talk to him. He keeps really well. But his Glowerty just goes crazy for food. You don't realize how athletic they are because you would assume they're just in and out of cracks, but they are very they're very intense.
I think most of them actually are also the Tristis. They also go completely nuts, but I have never seen them jump like that.
No,
They were more just
the tree monitors will go. Yeah, the tree monitors will jump. It makes sense because they're in trees, so they'll jump. So you have to think if a Glowerty, if they're jumping from rock face to rock face, rather than Tristis, which are on the ground like Flavies, whereas Glowerty are up. So you wonder if they jump across. Because it's not normal for them unless it's what they're doing in the wild, and it's just not studied. So maybe that's what they're doing.
Yeah, we need Fricey out there.
Yeah, to be fair to him, he's doing some work with Bearded Dragons. I'm going to get him back on to talk about it at some point.
Definitely.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of work in the field on how to keep Bearded Dragons. I spoke to him recently, actually. We went back and forth for quite a while on his and what he's got planned. I'm obviously not going to spoil it. It's not my place to say, but Fry's got some really, really good plans coming out. So people keep an eye on that. And then we'll get him to go up to Northern Australia to Kimberley and find Kimberleys. Right. I'm just checking this. So Dubia, I think he wants diet. So let's Dubia, because obviously Australia is new. I don't know how you manage to keep Australia. I don't know if that's a legal thing or not, but we'll still talk about it nonetheless. So Dubias, if you just want numbers, orange gets them going, like the citrus fruit, but don't feed off the ones that you're feeding citrus fruit to because it's a bad gut load. But I'm no pro, so I'll leave it to you, Mr. Scandinavian Goannas, to run through a quick 101 of roaches for someone who's never done it before.
Mine are very, very simple setup. I use 80-liter tubs, and I just stack egg crates. No substrate, no nothing, just egg crates. And then just different fruits and vegetables, and then a dry food. Of course, I made my own dry food out of like dried vegetables and leafy greens. But you can use whatever, you know. You can use commercially available roach chow or chicken food, fish food. Doesn't really matter. They'll eat more or less anything. They just need a lot of like fresh fruit as well. Then
Yeah.
keep them. I think mine are kept 28, 32 degrees. But I also use
They
open
need to be
tops.
hot to breed.
Yeah, and I don't have a lid on mine, so they don't get moist. That's all I do. I feed them
Also, as well, I was going to say about the frass, because they'll shed. People don't realize, but dubias obviously shed, and then they collect at the bottom, and you end up with what's called frass, a bunch of cockroach exoskeletons. It can be quite a lot, and you can get, if you're rummaging through your cockroach bin, excuse me, to find cockroaches that you want, you'll get a lot of upgrowth dust of the frass, and it can cause people to really struggle. And also another good thing to do is breed a bin and have a feed off bin, so you're not disturbing your breeders. You can just leave them alone for a year, harvest off a year's worth of feeders, and then let them breed again. Is always what I've been told is best.
I sort mine. I just sort mine whenever I feel there's too dense in the box. I will just quickly sort all the adults to a new box, and then I use all the babies as feeders.
Yeah. And they'll go for like 2 years, female dubias, don't they? They lay like 30, they give birth, should I say. And what you'll do, there'll be this little thing that sticks out of their bum. It's called an oofa. I think it's called an oofa. Anyway, it's basically the babies, and they're thermoregulating them. So if you see this little white tube cylindrical thing sticking out their bum, it's the babies. They stick them in and out, and that's how they thermoregulate the babies. That's the babies. The female will give birth every 30 to 40 days to sort of 20 to 30 babies. And a female will live for like 2 years. So they're pretty prolific if you can get them going. I don't really feed dubias anymore though, because they're really high in protein, and obviously high protein can lead to gout. So there's nothing wrong with feeding dubias, but just make sure you use them as part of a balanced diet, not just because Americans just feed nothing but dubias, and then they end up seeing gout in their animal, the Gutload. So dubias as well are 2 to 1 phosphorus to calcium, whereas you want 2 to 1 calcium to phosphorus. So you need to Gutload high in calcium and supplement calcium when feeding dubias to try and even them out, so you don't end up depleting calcium reserves. That's why I don't really feed them anymore. I just mainly do the discoids, which I collect. I should probably send them all to you, to be fair, and you could probably send me more than I produce like once a year, because I just forget about them. Mine are in a 150-litre tub, natural setup, all wood and soil, like they're proper setup natural. And I throw food in like twice a week, and they're on top of hot, and I just forget about them. But yeah, and then my dubia bin is completely empty, but I go through like 500-600 locusts a week every 10 days. So I feed mainly grasshoppers. I do 1,000 crickets and sort of 500 locusts a week is roughly what I do. I think people use beetles. Is it darkling beetles that eat the frass? I forget.
I don't know the common name of them. They're sold here as micro mealworms. The ones we used.
Yeah, buffalo. Are they buffalo beetles?
Yeah, I think so.
They're tiny, tiny little. You are right. They're like a mealworm beetle. They're tiny. That's what normally people use. But yeah, so you're breeding all your feeders. You're doing all your different gutloads. How do you look how do you look to get what kind of ingredients you want on a in your gutloads when you're creating a new gut? A bit of a mad scientist when it comes to this sort of stuff. So where do you start when you look to build your own gutloads?
Well, first off, I have to see what's available, also like affordable. And then I normally go online, I check the nutrition values of the different items. And then I just dry it, get all the fresh stuff I can and dehydrate it, and then just grind it up. So my mixture, it can vary depending on time of the year because we have a lot of vegetables that's seasonal. It's like now it's fall, now there'll be like a lot of squash and pumpkins and stuff like that. Then I normally buy these Hokkaido pumpkins and then I dehydrate them and then together with like some cabbage and some dandelions, bit of spinach. I know people, they don't like spinach, but there are benefits to spinach as well. And then Napa cabbage I use quite a lot as well. And then, I don't know, carrots, normal like squash, and then the moringa and all this stuff. Sometimes I add some sweet potato as well.
Yeah.
And then I would also get mixed with like pollen. It gets mixed with like pollen, spirulina, moringa. I have a couple more. I have some blueberry powder. That's basically what they get. And then
the one that you sent to me a couple of times, I go crazy for that. Like I put videos on Instagram for people that didn't see, but like the discoids, which are quite a shy roach, you undo the lid and they all run off. Like you put the mix that you sent me kindly in the corner and they all just run. And I'm like, whoa, like literally is like, they just go towards it. It's actually good. So much so people, oh, where can I buy it? I was like, it's not for sale. It's just, mad scientist Scandinavian Goannas makes it. It's something to try. But they love it, mate. Like, so you clearly, what you've done, it works.
But it's funny because the dry food don't only get mixed from dry food. I also add honey into the mixture. Like I just heat it so it gets like very liquid, so it's easy to mix into it, and then it all gets chopped again because of course all the dry powders will lump when you mix in the honey, so everything gets grinded again, and then it gets more or less to a powder. And a honey can't mold. If you notice, you forget your honey in a bucket, it will never go old. It won't mold. So it's okay to use.
To be honest,
it's okay to use it in the dry food because it doesn't mold. I don't think you will ever find anybody that has honey on their shelf at home that's molded.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense. It's all natural as well. So
yeah, so everything they get is more or less natural. It's only the chick food and this high quality koi pellets. I haven't really checked all the ingredients on those two, but it's main foods for chickens and for koi. So I mix that into the roach chow as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people just feed them like cereal, like there's
Yeah,
Weetabix or something.
Yeah, or plain chick food. And there's nothing wrong with using chick food. You can feed them plain chick food. It's okay.
Yeah. No, I've gone through loads of different. That's it. We're in darkness, everybody. Other than the one lumen off nighttime at Paul's monitor's house. I've done loads of different types of diet. Now I just do mainly a veg diet with my discoids, and then I'll use a brought gut load, and I'll gut load them like a few days, because gut loading only needs to be done 24 to 48 hours before you feed. But the feeding, and if you have I try my best to do high carotenoids, so carrots, peppers, stuff like that, squash, so you can have it will transpire into the animals and end up with the more colors. A legit thing. The more carotenoids your bugs eat, the more carotenoids your animals get. The more carotenoids your animals get, the more colourful your animals get. So it's like my big male Ackie. He's very, very red for a yellow Ackie because he was fed a lot of prawns before he came to me. So, you know, prawns high in carotenoids, pinks. Yeah, I do think it's important. My locusts get fed pretty much weeds from the garden every day, just as a guy. I try to breed them, same as my crickets. And then I know I can pick and pull and feed off whenever I need to feed off. But I also use every single feed. I make sure I supplement. I wasn't so hot on it years ago, but nowadays I make sure that I'm like one bug in for the sake of like getting an animal to move. I'll just grab the bug and throw it. But if I'm feeding, I will supplement everything now. Are you supplementing all feeds, or do you only do like one a week, or what's your supplement schedule?
With insects, I more or less do it with every feeding. But with the bigger ones that gets like the flavies, they get chicks and mice, I more do it about once a week. I will inject it into the mice or chick. Just mix the vitamins, minerals with water and just inject it.
Yeah.
Just to make sure they get what they need.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone worded it to me the other day and it made so much sense, like, because it was literally in the name. I think sometimes supplements are just there to fill gaps so they get what they need. It's designed to supplement the diet, and it's our job to provide the correct diet, and then the supplements just fill in the blanks that, for example, an animal drinking from a puddle in the wild, or eating clay, eating grass, eating barks, finding pollen, that sort of stuff. The supplements help us fill those missing blanks. And then I didn't really think about it before. I was like, yeah, that'd be all right. I'll do this. I'll give UV, I'll give that. And the more I've been sort of working in the whole actual industry and learning more and more with the HabiStat job and stuff, I knew supplementation was important, but my eyes and everything have been massively open to how important supplementation can be, especially if you're, for example, you go above and beyond with your feeders. So if you forgot to supplement now and then, it really wouldn't matter. Whereas someone who's just buying bugs off the shelf from a local pet store, if they're not supplementing, over time, you're going to start running into issues because they're probably not gut loading either. So it's more and more and more you learn about this sort of stuff. It really does make for better animals, especially if you're looking to breed. It really helps the females more so.
Yeah, definitely does, It's the building blocks. All this nutrition, we have to make sure they get. But even I use these Arcadia 12% more or less in all my cages. But in summer, I will supplement with D3 to my animals because my cages get warm. So often they don't bask much, so they don't get under the UV light. Then I will maybe once a week add a vitamin powder with the D3 in it, just to boost it a little.
Yeah. No, it's something I do with breeding females. I'll do D3. I don't do D3 otherwise, because for the most part, my enclosures are big enough that the animals still bark because my room doesn't get ridiculously. It has the odd day where it gets over 30 degrees, but for the most part, my room sits at 27, 28, so they're all acting as normal. But females, I will give a D3 powder to, especially after they've laid eggs, and if I know that they're in fertilogenesis, just to give them that extra boost, because it puts a lot, especially like that female king Gorum I've got. She laid eggs. Days later, laid eggs again. 32 days later, laid eggs again, and it's like, wow. So you've just laid whatever that is, 61 days. You've just laid 3 clutches of eggs in 61 days. Like, what's that done to your body? So it's really important to supplement her, feed her foods, get her through that time of hardship on her body, because otherwise next year you'll have a calcium crash and I won't have a female. So it's all about balance.
Yeah, but see, then people often forget the male. You know, a lot of people are so focused on their females that the females need. But how good can the male perform in fertilizing eggs if we neglect him because we focus on the female?
It's a great point. You're exactly right.
So with me, they more or less get treated the same. Of course, the females, after laying eggs, they would be offered more food than the male. But the quality of food is similar to all my males and females.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. My males don't less, but I do make sure that only when after laying eggs the females get like an extra boost, but otherwise everyone gets the same.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of times, especially for spermatogenesis, so that you start getting infertile clutches, you start getting spastic clutches here and there. Across the female, she's a dud, she's this, she's that, because the male was locking with her. So you've neglected your male. It could be your male that's your issue, not your female. If the female's laying eggs, the chances are she's reproductively ready. If they're slugs and the male's getting the job done, or getting it over, as it were, chances are he's not fit for the job because you've been neglecting him, and he's either not been cold enough, or not supplemented enough, or not fed enough, or fed too much. So yeah, healthy males it's a great point. Well made. Healthy males, produce healthy babies, and a baby is half the mum, half the dad. So if you've got an unhealthy, he gets a job done, big deal male, and a pristine female, the baby still will be weak because we're putting weak genetics into those babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like everybody here is
a lot
going
goes
crazy.
into breeding.
It does.
Well, the animals.
Much. Yeah, my animals are going crazy. They know it's feeding day tomorrow. Especially
what time do your lights normally go off?
They won't go off. I just turned them on for a while extra.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine go off at about 10:30, 11.
Mine normally go off around 10, but it would be pitch black here. I haven't installed an additional light. I should have, but I haven't made it that far yet.
I have ad hoc. I just have an LED that I've just got in front of the camera, so it's nothing fancy. It's actually an old light from a vivarium that I've just plugged in and put on our clothes drying and my PlayStation. So it's just there. So yeah, nothing but professionalism over here on the Pause Monitors channel.
It's what I wanted to do. I removed my old light.
Yeah,
I actually still had a working T8 fluorescent light here as a main, just like additional light to the room. It's super old. I don't even know if you can buy them anymore, the T8s.
Not really. You can still get the T8 Reptile bulb, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so old now. So I haven't installed an LED, so Everything in due time. I'm not home normally after 10 anyway.
No, exactly. I mean, we've got really nice lights in here. We have sort of ambient lighting, but I didn't want to put too much light in for the reptiles because obviously they're used to it being off. So I just left it off. But normally, most of the time, it's 20 to 11. So we'd probably either be in the lounge watching TV or Fee's, I don't know what she's doing now, but she's probably in bed. So she'll go, I'm going to bed. You come in, and we'll just literally just go upstairs and chill out upstairs. So the reptiles just get left to their own devices. And I'll come back down at like, I don't know, 12, 1 o'clock and check the geckos. Once the geckos have come out, feed the geckos, spray the geckos, and then I'll go to bed. So that's normally my nighttime routine. So they get darkness from dark. And I do sort of 10 till 10, half 10 till half 10, because I don't get home from work till sort of 6:30. So it still gives me 3 or 4 hours to feed everyone. Their lights are still on. They can digest the food and all this other stuff. So that's how and why I do it my way.
Yeah, I think mine are on from 10 till 10 normally. I feed. I normally. Yeah, I feed everything when I get up. Around 1 or 2. When I get up there, then I will go feed the animals. Nobody is home except me, so I have time to just an hour to feed everything.
Yeah.
So it's like
it's nice. It's not much today.
Yeah, but there ain't much time during the
No,
the
that's the problem when you have lots of animals.
Yeah, and a lot of work.
I find it's run and gun. It's like, there you go, you're fed, you're sprayed, you're fed, you're sprayed. And then I'm like, and then I'm like, right, okay, I've got 20 minutes left. Who do I want to play with? I was saying to a lady the other day, I was like, don't envy only having 3 or 4 animals, because the quality time you get to spend with those animals is always greener. People look at my room and they go, oh my God, I'd love to have all your stuff. I look at someone who has 4 animals that are in massive, elaborate, fancy enclosures. I'm like, I would love to have your stuff. So the grass is always greener. I find sometimes I feel like I'm just maintaining my collection, always to a high standard for the most part, but I never have time to sit and enjoy them,
Yeah, I know. I also don't have the time that I wish I had. That's also sometimes why. Sometimes I think maybe I should downsize a bit more, keep a little less.
It's hard though. Just who goes? Like, I'm there now. Yeah, I don't want to get rid of anybody. The only animals in my room that I would be okay with parting with would be my Bosque to the right home, and so my Savannah to the right home, and probably my Gillanai. I don't want to my Gillanai, but I know I wouldn't be devastated. But everyone else, I'm really attached to. I don't want to lose anybody. So it's like, oh my God.
That's also why I haven't downsized anymore. I don't know who should go.
Apparently the Gillanai before Bumpy, though.
Last words.
She's still awake. Yeah, she's still awake. God damn it. No, I have. Let me do the maths. 4, 5, 6. I have 6 Gillanai. I don't need 6 Gillanai. A pair or a trio is enough. I don't need more than that. So I'll probably be moving on a few Gillanai. But then it doesn't free up space because there's only 2 enclosures. There's just a couple in there and a couple in there. So the space doesn't change. It's just the food and time reduces a little bit. But
yeah,
no, I'm happy with where I'm at. I don't. But then the problem is with it. It's like I've said to Fee now. Other than this one species which I'm getting, I said if I want anything, something has to go. So, for example, let's say I'm able to get some Storai. I would have to argument's sake get still I would have to go so I can get Storai. So outside of this one species, that's kind of what I've said to her now. If something comes in, something's got to go out, which is making me more strict on what comes in, because it has to be more exciting, enjoyable, valuable than what I already have. And it's horrible to say that something I don't have is better than something I do have, but there's no point in me lying. I like new things. I like new challenges. I've done Gillanai. Doesn't mean I don't like Gillanai, but I've done it. So I like to go on to the next thing, and we're limited to our space and we're limited to our finances. So it's hard to do them all within 4 walls.
But again, also if you have done a species for like many years, suddenly you would like it a challenge. You see, I bred Fiji Goannas for over 10 years. I think I hatched over 100. In the end,
Yeah,
you don't have the same excitement. Baby 99 is not as exciting as baby number 1.
no, never is.
And that's also why it's like, I like my red Ackies, but I don't think I really have anything I could like downsize with right now. That's why these 3 that are on their way, then we'll have to see if there will be space for anything after that. They will need a big
Yeah, it
enclosure.
becomes hard. They will. It's been knowing you, like they'll be in a huge enclosure.
They will
So
have a
I still
walk-in.
need to sort. Yeah, I need to sort a big. With my 2 mangroves up there, Solly and Speck, they're okay in what they're in for now. But I know somewhere I have to find space for a big enclosure somewhere. So like it's always in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, this is free now, but it's not free forever. I mean, if I could send you my Gillanai, I would, but I can't. Like, I wish you were in the UK, because the 2 Gillanai I struggled to sell, I was just given to have them. But sadly, I cannot. Goddamn Americans. So yeah, it's also thank you for the super chat, love you. It's hard. It is hard because even my little black tree monitor, Raven, she's getting big, and I know I need to upgrade her. And it's like, okay, I've got an enclosure coming soon, and that will last her for another 6 months to a year, say. But then I need another one of these for the black tree, and it's like, oh god, all of a sudden that's 2 massive enclosures that I need to find space for. It's hard. It really is hard, because I have space now, but in a year with animals I already have, I don't have space. So yeah,
It is hard. That's also why I only hold back 3 of the flubbies. Your friend is gonna get some really nice ones that I wanted to hold back.
I'm looking forward to seeing them. I can't.
Yeah, I think they will look pretty nice as adults. They'll be a little out of the normal.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see them here. Play with them. When they come down, I want to spend like a day just sitting and watching them. I'm inviting myself to people's houses because I'm not getting them, but I just want to sit and watch and just enjoy them, because it'll be a first time for me. And you can, it's good when you've got friends, especially if they're local. I'm very fortunate that a lot of my friendship group in the group chat of, I think there's like 8 of us, all of them bar 2, one of them being Riddler, thank the Lord, are within 2 hours, but thankfully Riddler's miles away. He's not near me, so I don't often have to see him, which is great. But everyone else is within sort of like 2 hours, so I can go and see them, other than Michael, who's in Scotland. I see other people's stuff, so it kind of can scratch an itch. Like I can go and see Matt, he's got all the tree monitors. I can go and see Dan, he's got some and a few other cool bits. I can go and see some of my other friends, Neil, who's doing really well with the Kimberleys. So if I want to play with Kimberleys, I can go and play with them. So I'm very fortunate that I did that 2 or 3 years ago. So I kind of felt like I had to have everything to keep me excited for it.
Yeah, it's not that easy over here. There's not many keeping monitor lizards around me. I think my
No, I
closest
can imagine.
friends are like 2.5, 3 hours away that keeps monitor lizards. Or else I don't know. I don't know. I do have one friend, but he lives in the other side of the country that has a pair of these tiny tiny mangroves that I would like. He has an adult pair. The male is 90 centimeters only.
Yeah, you have to go find the time to go and play with them. They sound amazing. I think I'd say when we've spoken about them, I think I know what ones you're on about, but the problem is, like we've said, with that Indicus complex or Indicus as a species, it's so muddy. Like Juxtindicus, Dwyeri, Spinulosis, Chloroma, and Cerula virens, off the top of my head. There was another one. Oh my god, I forgot it now. There's another one. There's 6 recently that have been re-described. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was the one named after Daniel.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember.
And there was one with I was reading it on a paper as well. There was another one recently, but yeah, there was. That's what I mean. There's loads just coming from Indicus. It's pretty mental. So
there was
in
Benetti, I think they call it Benetti. Benetti.
Yeah, I think that does ring a bell.
That was the one named after Daniel.
Yeah.
Of course, there's the coli.
Coli was another one. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't get those exported. They are, but I was told we can't get.
Speak to Chris. I know that they have a few of those because I've spoken to Peter Fulsham about them before. So you never know. I can't say yes or no, but
I don't think they can import them to Europe because the guy that imported my Jobiensis, I asked him. He said they weren't allowed. The ones he knows, they weren't allowed to export them.
America don't realize how lucky they are.
America has a lot of things we don't have. See, they have monitor lizards I've been looking for in the wild. I haven't found yet. 2 trips, I haven't found them yet.
Yeah, they've got some cool stuff. Spinulosis are becoming more popular, which is wonderful because I think they're great. A few more people over there stateside are starting to work with Spinulosis. Such a strange lizard, like the ghost of the forest. Black eyes, weird faces, weird skin. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right. There's a couple. So how big is Solly now? And did you manage to find? So yeah, I hatched 3 mangroves. I kept Solly, which is the first. And then I managed to sell the other 2. And Cathy has squid. And another gentleman has the middle one. And Solly is probably pushing 2 feet now, but he's got no mass. He's just really long. He's really, really skinny. And then Gary has asked, are Russell Islands smaller than Solomon's? The 3S dot I have are huge. And he means Russell's. The 3 Solomons are huge compared to Roach, which is a Russell Island. Okay. No, I think Russell Islands overall are smaller, Gary, if I'm honest. But mangroves are also really slow growing, so you might find that they're just younger. Like when my imports come in, I had some this big and I had some this big. And who lives with Solly now, I named all my mangroves S. It's honestly a nightmare. So because of Solly now, Solly is about the same size as Spec, and I've personally owned Spec for nearly 2 years, and Solly's 10 months old. So goes to show you how slow they can grow, especially being wild. Right, they're talking about other stuff. Okay, so happy on food. You want to touch on food?
No, I think we've been through most of it. The basics.
Is there
at least.
any more? Yeah, well, we can go for a round 3. To be everyone, you have to thank Mr. Scandinavian Goannas, because the only reason we're doing a podcast tonight, because myself and him booked this in a month ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that. You messaged me and you're like, I have a free weekend here if you want to do a podcast. I said, yeah, we'll book it in. And then like Wednesday this week, I messaged him and I was like, are we still down? He's like, yeah, I don't know if I can be bothered. He's like, nah, you'll like it, be good. And here we are 3 hours later. So you have to thank Mr. Scandinavian Goannas for getting my beautiful mug, because that is the only reason. I literally said to Fee, I was like, I can't be asked, but I've already agreed to it, so I have to do it. This was today. She's like, when you get on it, you'll be fine. And here we are 3 hours later, everybody. So if that's not worth a like, I don't know what is. Is there any more something you want to touch on? If not, we can do some questions and we'll start to wrap it up a little bit.
We can do that.
Yeah. There you go. Got some appreciation. Thank you for dragging Paul.
Thanks.
It's been a long time since I catch you on a podcast, Paul. It's been awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into it at this late at night, but I do miss the long haul pool pods. Damn, that mouse for the long haul pool pods. But yeah, I've had a pretty rough year. I've lost motivation for YouTube. I love the podcasts. I do. I love talking. It's just effort, but I'm not complaining. Good vibes only tonight, people. Okay, questions we have answered kind of through this podcast. But I think the most important one is I read it out at the start. How do you get adopted by a Varanus enthusiast? And do you want any more adult children?
See, that's a good question, because I actually don't even know how we ended up with this. I can't
remember.
Me neither. I can't remember it. No, I think it was a question. Wait, it was a question. You had a question with something you could say to your child or something like that.
Oh, it was. You're correct. Yeah, at the end of the podcast, and you gave advice.
Yeah,
and I said, that's sound. I wish my dad gave me that advice. Yeah. And then you went, I can be your adopted dad. Yeah, and I was like, all right, cool. So you adopted a grown man. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's good memory.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So basically, what you have to do, to the person who asked this question, start a podcast, get guests, put at the end of the podcast leading questions. And then when they answer the questions, you beg and go, I wish my dad was that good. And then hope that they adopt you. That's basically what I did. It seemed to work.
Yeah, see, I even been sending you gifts.
Yeah. I eventually returned the favor after like 6 months of waiting, but it happened.
It happened.
Yeah, eventually. Christmas came early. And it was easier than I thought it would be. I know you had a bit of complication your end, but I thought it would cause issues crossing, but it was just an issue your immediate end. But at least we know it's feasible now, and we can probably work it to be better next time.
Yeah, we just have to put a lower value on it.
Yeah, I don't even put a value on it, but I think I definitely put it as a gift. But yeah, well, next time I'll just say it's like a pound.
I think everything under 45 euro. I think everything under 45 euro is tax free from the UK to Denmark.
I generally don't remember what I put. But yeah, well, next time I'll just put cheap. Okay, what's your favorite part of breeding your animals?
That's a good question. Probably the hatchlings when they start popping, pipping out of the eggs.
What is it about that makes it the best? I mean, I know, but just for the people that have never hatched an animal before.
It's probably just seeing this new life, is taking its first breath. And often, at least with the flavies, when they hatch, just have their head out, they're not really scared of you. Even you open the box, they will still lay there with their heads out.
For me, I think successfully breeding regularly a species, you've been able to care for that species well enough and understand that species well enough, happy to procreate, and then if the babies hatch strong and healthy, that means you've done the best you can for that egg. And if the babies do well, and then I'm saying loads of things. I think for me, bring the babies to loving homes, I think that is priceless. I've had it before across lots of different species, but the look someone gives this new baby lizard, whether that's one of the 3 UK captive mangroves or whether that's one of the in the UK, these people get these animals and they're like, oh my God. And that never gets old for me. I'll be honest, I'm kind of bored of hatching Ackies at this point. It doesn't hit the same, but I'm not bored of someone getting excited over buying an Ackie off me. That's that for the best. Right. Well, why are mangrove monitors the best monitor? It's not from me, by the way. I didn't ask that question. Generally didn't ask it.
I don't know if I would say they're the best.
No, they're terrible. Top 50.
Well, not the ones
they're horrible pets.
The ones I had, the male was okay. The female was shy, but the male was actually okay. But yeah, mangroves, they're not as nasty as some of the other indicos like Dorianos or the tricolors. I used to have tricolors as well.
No, those tricolors are wonderful. They're something else in person. They're yeah, they're you can't explain them really. They're so unique, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. That they are. They are more or less gone in Europe, I think.
An attempt here in the UK to breed them, which I won't go into on air, but from what I hear, not from what I've seen and not what I've heard firsthand, but what I hear through the grapevine is there's someone who's got a couple here in the UK are going to try to breed them, whether they will or not. I mean, I wish them luck, but they're not exactly an easy species. I don't think they've ever been bred in captivity, have they?
No.
No. What's his name? Cody Joe, the reptile shop in. He's pretty good with Indicus Complex, and I know he's got some UNO now, so maybe he'll crack them. He's done Melinus, Indicus, a few other species like Prasinus stuff, so maybe he'll be able to crack them. But yeah, mangroves for me. Mango, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think if Mango was really shy, if by demeanor I never saw her, I would have never have loved mangroves as much as I love mangroves, and I think I love mango more than I love mangroves. But I've never had a reaction. I don't think I ever will have a reaction like I did when Solly, my first ever mangrove, hatched. I was physically uncontrollably shaking. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't string sentences together. I was just so euphoric in that moment. So it obviously means I didn't have that reaction when I hatched Ackies or Gillanai, or even the little toad head that we hatched is pretty special. I was very excited, but nothing like I can't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Hello!" I can't remember. I was just like holding the egg like this, and poor little Solly's like, in the. I was like, "Oh!" It was definitely something special, and that I don't think that moment will ever be beaten. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like you've said, the first is only the first once, and Solly is not only the UK's first captive mangrove, to my knowledge. He's not only a virgin baby from a lizard I absolutely adore. Like he's so much more, because myself and Mango, we've been through a lot together, like with our lives and journeys and stuff. So now I have this perfect little parthenogenic baby, the fruit of my labor, as it were. But he's just Solly to me now. He's no longer all these accolades, but he's just part of my room. So he's just Solly. When I first got a tree monitor, I've wanted one of these since I was 7 years old. Oh my God, I've got a green tree. It becomes just a green tree. It becomes just Kermit, just Cada. They're still very special, but first fade. So I do implore anyone to listening to this to make sure when you have these moments in time to live in them, because they pass and those memories will always be with you. But the serendipity that in those moments won't. So just make sure you enjoy that time, I think, is important to note. How did you feel when you first hatched your mangroves?
Well, took a few attempts, It was a couple of first clutches that weren't good. Then there was a clutch that didn't hatch. And then they hatched. Suddenly two clutches hatched. I was excited, because it was like mangroves was the big challenge for me at that point. So I was super excited when they hatched. Yeah. But again, if I had kept on breeding mangroves, the excitement wouldn't be the same. I would still be excited.
Yeah, it goes, yeah.
But it wouldn't be the same. And it's kind of where I am with a lot of the Australian dwarves. I have bred a lot of them now, more than once. So it's just like routine almost.
Yeah.
So then I get the Jobies. Then there will be the next big challenge, and then the new ones coming. There would be the second new challenge.
Yeah, in tandem, two at once, spinning two plates. Yeah.
Yeah. We can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's exciting, and it's something I'm looking forward to watching you achieve. Because I know you'll crack it. The guy, what's his name? Unlimited Exotics. He just had a clutch of Petri eggs. So congrats to him. So it's doable. It's just a case of figuring it out.
Yeah.
And obviously Mike's finally did it in like 99 or whatever it was. It was a long time ago. So it's just a case of cracking that egg. And fortunately, we have the internet, so we can bounce ideas off loads of different people that have been successful, other people that are successful in similar areas. But now I'm excited to see what you can do with the Jobiensis and the other species. But the Jobiensis, I think captive bred Jobiensis, seeing a captive bred Indicus and what a captive bred Indicus is in comparison to a wild Indicus, I think captive bred Jobiensis are going to be wonderful. I think they're so social and inquisitive and curious once they get a bit bigger. Like the mangroves, I don't know how long you had your mangroves for as babies, the captive bred ones, but I find around 6-ish months, just seemingly out of nowhere, they just go, I'm not more, and they'll just tongue feed, and they'll just do, and they'll literally, Solly jumps onto me for food, like jumps out and jumps onto me. He's 10 months old, and like It's crazy to think for a mangrove doing that. I think peach rates would be even more so.
Considering that mine are imports, the biggest of them, I have had them, 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, it's not.
The biggest
it's not that
of
long.
them, yeah, it's about 3 weeks. The biggest is 30 centimeters, 20, 30 centimeters max. It's already so bold that if I hold a food bowl in my hand, it will come to me and eat from the bowl.
That's amazing, yeah.
And the two others, they feed from tweezers, no problem. They started feeding from tweezers the third or fourth day I had them.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
But we'll see how it goes. The little one is very tiny. It can almost only have hatched when it got shipped out.
Yeah, it's crazy to think.
It is tiny.
Did you weigh them?
No.
I wish I weighed my indicas when they came in, because then I could compare them to the weight of the babies to get a rough idea of how old they are based on weight.
Yeah, but mine was 3 weeks in Germany first before they came here. And they were already eating well. They were eating well in Germany as well.
It must be a really good, good farm that they've come from. To be, I know Jobienses are more inquisitive than Indicus anyway, just by nature. But yeah, like, I'm so happy for you that you've got these social, bold, not scared. I mean, you can't ask for more starting a project, because if they're shy and they're hiding away, or you don't really get to know them, but being so bold and active and readily feeding, you better learn them. And I think a lot of the keys to unlocking the Indicus complex is because they're so shy and they're so cryptic, so you don't really see what they're doing and you miss behaviors. Whereas Mango, as much as she's an arsehole, she's not shy, so I see everything. I know exactly what she's going through, and I can see her body all the time. So it's easy for me to know when she's laying, when she's in fertilogenesis, when she's hungry, when she's not. So if you can get your peach rates to be like that, I don't struggle at all.
I think they will probably be pretty social, considering how they are already now. There's only the one little Johnny. I don't know if it's a male, but I named him Little Johnny. He's the most tricky one, because either the food really has to move, it has to be insects, or else I have to lure him with insects on the tweezer to get him to eat. He won't eat prawns or fish or even a piece of a chick. If you cut up a chick, he won't eat a piece of that either. He's really into the insects for now.
The mangroves I've got here, they love bugs.
Yeah, but it's no problem. He'll just be on insects for now until he grows, and then we'll see.
Yeah, if they're willing to take bugs, and I leave them. Like, these guys get crickets all the time. Like Solly, the mangrove, he loves crickets. Like, goes crazy for crickets. He wants them. I just leave him. I always have crickets available. And when I first hatched them, all three of them, I couldn't get any of them to eat. Fish, chick, shrimp, egg, mince, nothing. What did they eat? Crickets. So, it's what they take is what they take. Eating something's better than nothing, for sure.
That's where I had the problems with the mangroves when I got them. They didn't eat anything I offered. And we went through everything I had in the freezer. They got offered insects. They wouldn't eat anything. Until we took the kids to the beach and they were catching crabs. Then we quick boiled the crabs, and then we cut them into pieces. Then within 10 minutes, the mangroves were eating.
Yeah.
But it
They
had to
love a
be
crab. Mango. No, go on.
it had to be crabs from the beach. We tried to buy crabs in the Asian store that has been cleaned. They didn't want them. They didn't touch them. It really had to be with the gut and everything inside a crab. But they would go nuts for crabs.
Yeah, mango. I haven't been this year, but I go crabbing often in the summer, or try to. When I say often, like once a month, collect as much crabs as I can. I haven't been at all this year, but watching Mango declaw a crab and then pull it apart is pretty impressive. They've clearly evolved. They know what they're doing. She pulls off the claws and then she'll split it open, then she'll crunch it all up and eat it. It's so cool to see. And these animals are obviously eating these crabs in the wild, so trying to bring them into captivity is vital for me.
Yeah, if it's like a natural diet, it's like you almost have to do it. Instead of the constant rodents and chicks, you know? A lot of people, they just feed rodents and chicks because it's easy.
Yeah, and cheap.
Yeah, especially the chicks.
Yeah, the chicks are dirt. Chicks are arguably better for rodents as well, though. So if you're gonna do one, I don't do rodents at all for Mango. She's had rodents in the past, but she's not had a rodent in over a year. She gets protein, high protein diet, but I don't feed her rodents anymore. Just chicks, shrimp, crabs, crustaceans, mussels, fish, bugs. That's what she gets.
Yeah, I'm also going to like drop more or less the rodents next year when the quails get going. The nice thing about the quail is when they hatch, they're so small that the tristis can even eat them. So even my younger flabbies won't have a problem eating quail chicks. And they grow fast.
No, they're a great size.
Quails grow super fast. So it's like from baby quail to something for the adult flabbies, it's like a week or two, then they're perfect size.
They make a great feeder. We're not that poultry here. So I keep trying to convince my mum because my mum has chickens. So I'm like, if I buy some quail, you do quail for me and I'll hatch the eggs and stuff. She's like, no more birds, no, because she's already got like 25 chickens and 3 ducks. So she's got her hands full, bless her. But if one day we ever own our own home, I would like to do quail because quail chicks are very expensive, but to breed them is cost effective in comparison to buying them.
Yeah. I don't think we can normally even buy them here. We can only buy adult frozen old egg layers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They're quite popular here in pets. There's like 3 or 4 different species that are commonly available. So the tiniest Japanese quail, there's another one. It's not the Japanese quail, but there's another button quail. Then there's like a green quail. And then there's the stereotypical, just the oriental quail. There's quite a few here that we can have. They're not very expensive. They're like £15-20. But quail chicks are like £3 to £5 each, like day-old pre-killed chicks. So it adds, when you're doing a one-off now and then, it's really not too bad. But when you've got as many animals as we do, it costs you like £50 a week to buy the amount of quails you need. Like Mango would 5, 6, 7, 8 quail chicks wouldn't touch the sides. So it's like, oh, and even if I was to feed them to say the Bosque, 3 or 4 quail chicks wouldn't touch the sides. That's £50 already. And I've only fed 2 lizards. So it's not. That's why I like chicks, because they're like 10p. Chicks are good.
Yeah, chicks are super
And
cheap.
eggs. Yeah, chicks are cheap.
But the quails, when I do it them myself, I can get the sizes I want. I can even just feed off fertile eggs. Don't even have to hatch them.
Yeah. It's got everything in there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, instead of feeding like a raw egg that will just end up everywhere.
Yeah. It has all the nutrients of the baby inside of it. It's perfect. No perfect size, bite-sized nugget.
Yeah.
Right. Last question from the people. There's lots more, but I'm only gonna do this last one, and then I'll save the rest for when we do a round 3. Then we have 2 wrap-up questions, and if there's anything else in the chat, drop it now. Speak now, forever hold your peace. So the last question from the people that we're going to go through today is: if you could only keep Australian or Indonesian monitors for the rest of your life, what would you choose and why? So I'll go first. I'll pick. I know straight away Indonesian. No question for me, because tree monitors. If tree monitors weren't in Indonesia and you remove tree monitors from the equation, it becomes very hard. But only because monitors are Indonesian, it tips it for me. But with removing the tree monitors, I think you can keep more variety from Australia. So I would pick Australia.
Probably, I would probably also pick Australia if I had to choose. Mainly because we have quite a lot of Australian ones here in Europe. Some are rare, some are not rare. You see, there's even like the dispensary. They are here in Europe with legal papers. There are the caudos, the little one, a little smaller than Goannas. There's a lot of Aussie species here. So if I had to choose, I would probably go with the Aussies.
Yeah, I agree. Removing tree monitors. Mike said there's tree monitors. There's also Dorianus and mangroves in Australia, but those species are not in captivity. So if we're talking about legal captive available species, I would pick Indonesia purely because of tree monitors. Removing tree monitors, I pick Australia because you can something like a Tristis or a Scalaris or even a Glauity, if you want that slim neck, boreal-esque monitor, Goannas. You can go for your stuff like Ackies, Storite, Kingorum, Flavies. This Australia is just a Goanna capital, so I prefer Indonesian monitors, but they're a lot harder to keep, and which is obviously the theme of the podcast. So being realistic, outside of tree monitors, Australia probably takes the cake. As much as I hate to rest in peace, Mango. Right. Is there any final questions? I'm going to get into the wrap-up questions. So question 1. I haven't changed them. So what's some advice? If I wrote this right, what's some advice? Yeah, some advice you'd give someone just starting the hobby, so the reptile hobby.
Figure out what you want, Figure out what species that really interests you. And don't go out and buy an Ackie because everybody tells you to get an Ackie because it's a beginner. You shouldn't buy an Ackie if you don't really like an Ackie just because people say it. If you like a Tristis, read up on the Tristis, get in touch with people keeping Tristis, and then you buy a Tristis. You don't buy an Ackie just because people say it's a good beginner if you don't have interest in Ackies.
Yeah, you're like out of love with it and rehoming it and getting the Tristis in the long run anyway.
Yeah.
And then the last one, No, I might get adopted again. What's some advice you'd like to give to the world?
At this time, it's for the world. It's not for my kids. So no
It's not for your
adoptions.
kids. It's for the world. Well, I mean, it's just some advice you'd like to put out there for whatever we believe in, out into the ether.
If we could give any advice to everybody in this world, if they would listen, they should stop the hate. Stop hating each other for being different. There's no reason to hate each other just because we're different. Even if you're white, you're black, whatever, doesn't matter. People are people. You're good to me, I'll be good to you.
Yeah, I hate this whole, I don't know how nationalism, borderism, whatever you'd want to call it. Like, we're all Homo sapien. Like, we're literally all the same species. And just because one of us was lucky enough to be born here and someone was slightly unlucky in the world's eyes to be born here, like, what? Like, we're on the same earth. We all have the same basic biological drives and needs and functions. So yeah, man, I 100% agree. Like, it's so I don't know if anyone here watches Rick and Morty, but Rick and Morty did a funny skit that it was like they're in space and they're looking at this planet, and it's a planet filled with snakes, and they're like, oh my god, can you believe that these snakes are starting a war because this snake is a different color to that snake? Can you believe how stupid that is? Just starting a war because you're a different color snake. Idiots. And I was like, yeah, that's funny because it's so true. But yeah, there you go. Stop the hate, people. Love thy brother.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, mate. But as I said off air, like, I've quite enjoyed the last 6 months of being a nobody and just being behind the scenes and just enjoying my animals and my immediate circle of the hobby. It's been quite nice. But I have enjoyed the last 3.5 hours I've spent with you and all of you beautiful people. I thank each and every one of you for tuning in, as always. I always get nervous no one's going to show up, but we had a really good turnout, a lot of chat. And Mr. Scandinavian Goannas, thank you for being my adoptive father. Thank you for always being a confidant and a friend to me behind the scenes, and being somebody that I've been able to confide in with more than just reptiles, and confide in with my struggles of life and personal and spiritual beliefs and stuff. And you've always been really good to me. I really, really, really value our friendship, and I'm so grateful that you dragged my sad ass onto this podcast tonight. And thank you for spending the last 3.5 hours with me. It's been a pleasure spending the time with you, my friend.
The pleasure's all mine. It was fun.
It's been good. I've enjoyed it.
It was enjoyable, yeah.
We'll run around free some point probably next year now, because if we're all lucky, I might do one more podcast before the year ends. But all jokes aside, we'll do around, because there's loads we can talk on. I always find it, I guess daunting is the right word, before I do a podcast with someone I speak to pretty much every day. Because I'm like, what do we talk about? Because we talk every day. Because I already know some things that you're going to say, and we've already spoke about a lot of this personally. But, it's been 3.5 hours, and we could go more. The only reason I am wrapping it up is because I didn't sleep last night, and it's later for you, admittedly, but it's now nearly midnight, and I haven't had dinner, so I need to have dinner and go to bed. Otherwise, I'd probably go for a little bit longer. But I appreciate it, mate. I've enjoyed your time, and I've enjoyed your wisdom and knowledge. So thank you for spending the last 3.5 hours with us, everyone. This is Scandinavian Goannas. Links are in the description. Please check him out. And he's doing. Oh, actually, for the people that are still here, do you want to do a bit on what you're trying to do with the website and the Project Varanus with all the species and stuff?
Well, the website. Yeah, I'm trying to create a digital library. Just photos, a couple of photos of as many species as possible. We are at a point where it's slowing down now, because I think I have almost 60 species added from all over the world. People have been helpful, reptile keepers, photographers, naturalist people, everybody has chipped in. And then The rest of the website, there will be a little of like care sheet, but it will probably be more going into some sort of like data collection, like clutch sizes, egg weight of egg, size of eggs, incubation temperatures, incubation period, if I can get people to chip in on it. That's the hope and goal, that it would be stuff like that, not just a regular website with care sheets.
So if anybody has information on any rare species of monitor, or even just monitor full stop, it helps. If you've got you've been breeding, or you've got any information, please message Mr. Scandinavian Goannas. His Instagram and website is below. So as you said, if we're chipping in, and also give him a like, fucking moths, give him a like and a follow whilst you're over there. So just final comments, if there's anything else anyone wants to say before we do wrap it up. But great pod, it's been great, thanks guys, great pod, I've missed it. Always a good one. Scandi is like an uncle that's got the world of wisdom just sitting in.
Gary has to message me.
Okay, Gary, you have to message him.
I might have some info for him.
There we go. I don't know what he's talking about, Gary, but message the man. But yeah, okay, right. Literally just noticed, this is very vain of me, but how blue my eyes are in this light, which is quite nice. I've only just noticed it. Fee's a lucky lady. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in to the Captive Raptors podcast. I have been your host, Paul's Monitors. Mr. Scandinavian Goannas has been our guest in the description. I appreciate and love you all for tuning in on this Sunday evening or Monday morning if you're in Australia. Any final words before we click end stream, mate?
I think I'm good. It was nice being here. It was a fun little talk we had. We can have a lot more info if we need another podcast in a year, updates on what's going on here. There will be a lot of updates in a year.
You'll have the new species by then.
I will have at least one new species by then, maybe more.
At least, yeah. Hopefully I'll have my new species by then as well. So
we'll have
we can talk new species. And yeah, we always have stuff to talk about, my friend, always. It's always easy talking, like 3.5 hours, it's flown by. And this has been actually, I'm not just saying it, this has been quite a requested, requested round two. A few people messaged saying, can we get Mr. Scandinavian Goannas back on? Can we get Mr. Scandinavian Goannas back on? I was like, yeah, of course we can. And then I just decided not to do a podcast. So I had been meaning to do this for a while. But we are here now. It's been a fabulous podcast. Lots of great info. Thanks, Paul and Scandi. You're all welcome. But yeah, if that's it, everybody, I'm going to end this. Thank you for spending your time with us. I really do appreciate each and all of you. Check out all the links in the description for myself and Mr. Scandinavian Goannas. If you ever need anything, both of us are pretty friendly. So just send us a message. We'll get back to you when we can. Yeah, and I think that's it, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, everyone. This has been